Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 181. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge on the Comics Forum, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot Stegall. This episode we're going to be finishing up the third part and final part of our For Tomorrow dissection, which means after this we're going to be ready to head right on to Preacher. I want to remind everyone that we are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. We are also continuing supporters of the Hero Initiative. Go to heroinitiative.org for more information. And if you go to ragingbullets.com, there's a handy-dandy link, and we ask you to please continue supporting the Hero Initiative. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com, where you can pick up the Superman Mon-El hardcover for pre-order at DCBService.com. Following the startling events of New Krypton, Earth finds itself without Superman. Luckily, Metropolis still has heroes like Mon-El, but after years of knowing nothing but the solitude of the Phantom Zone, how will Mon-El acclimate himself to society? And the recently returned Guardian has his hands full with his new position in the Science Police. How can they fill Superman's shoes? And this collects Superman 684 to 690, Action Comics 874, elements from the Action Comics Annual number 10, and this is a 224-page hardcover, regularly $24.99, 50% off, only $12.49. That's a great deal for anyone out there if you've been missing this storyline, which has been fabulous. Since we're finishing For Tomorrow on this episode, we're ready to kick off our review for Preacher. Preacher hardcover. We're going to be doing this next. It's going to be covering issues 1 through 12. Written by Garth Ennis, art by Steve Dillon. Cassidy, Jesse, Tulip. It's just an amazing series. Regularly $39.99, 47% off, only $21.19. You can get volume 1 and 2 in trade, $14.99 regularly, 47% off, only $7.94 each. We're going to be announcing our next Rage of the Month with episode number 183, so that's coming up very, very close. So this is your last chance if you want to squeak in and get Preacher Book 1 hardcover. We're going to be announcing our listener winner, I should say, on episode 183, and then they'll be picking the book, and we'll probably announce that, I'm assuming, on episode 184. But I'm really excited to kick off Preacher. This is a book that is something that's been very special to me, and to finally have a chance to really delve into this on this show. I'm anxious to hear Jim's thoughts, too, because he's never read Preacher prior to this, so it'll be fun to really kind of dig into this one. So that's InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com. We're continuing to support our show, and we really appreciate it. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you could better enjoy the show.
I want to remind everyone about our voicemail line, which is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. There's also ragingbullets@gmail.com if you want to send us an email. Our next episode, we're going to do a look at some of the current books, and we're going to do listener voicemails and emails, and then we're going to jump right into Preacher the following week. So we wanted to make sure to get one more episode of current continuity in before we jump into some of the older material. So that's what's coming up down the line. So if you want to get us any voicemails or emails in before our next episode, do that, because we want to make sure to air that on that show. So definitely next week, emails and voicemails and a whole bunch of other content, and we're really excited to bring that to you. And without further ado, let's continue on and finish up For Tomorrow.
Okay, let's get started right back once again, with Superman For Tomorrow. We are being joined by Mandy Stegall, a.k.a. Super Mandy from the forums, and the creator of the Life in the Gutter column that's you can find on the Raging Bullets website.
Exclusively.
Only. Okay, so I missed that. Hey, welcome back.
Nice to be here.
Welcome back.
Oh, don't go there.
Yes. Welcome back.
My ears.
Yeah. Well, I got to do different stuff this time. I can't do the same goofy stuff we did the first time we recorded. Just so we bring everybody into this. This is our second attempt at recording the third part of Superman For Tomorrow. So there's going to be some giggling and probably some tangents that we do halfway because they're from stuff we previously discussed. And if we do that, we'll try to bring you into the actual discussion. But Superman For Tomorrow is written by Brian Azzarello, pencils by Jim Lee, inker Scott Williams, colors by Alex Sinclair, letterer Rob Lay, Nick J. Napolitano, editors Eddie Berganza, Will Dennis, assistant editor Cassie Seijas, Seijas. Additional inkers are Richard Friend, Sandra Hope, Matt Benning, Eric Basaldua, Jim Lee, Danny Mickey, Trevor Scott, Tim Townsend, and Joe Weems. And of course, Superman is and was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster.
Well, actually, it isn't.
I know.
You make it sound like it's consistently being created, like they're still working on it.
I caught myself.
You were doing so well.
I know.
You were getting so plastic there that I was afraid to put you by a flame.
How you doing there, folks? I'm the Sensei of Whatnot, and I got a used car for you.
You do that scarily, too.
I know.
You know,
it's my days of retail sale and in the branches and all that stuff where you just got to rattle off all the stuff about the totally free checking.
Did you do that?
Oh, God.
At a counter?
Yeah,
nobody punched you?
No. You just rattle off and you just get into the zone where you're talking about, free checking, yada, 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 and you just get going. And
I did retail sales for 10 years, and I didn't do any of that.
Oh, I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I've got the retail sales.
Do you?
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes just
more than I'd care to admit.
Okay, on to Superman for tomorrow.
Yes.
So, of course, this cover is that great cover of just showing Diana and Clark fighting, and that was something that anticipation for a lot of these covers really gave a lot of anticipation, especially in this last half. And this last one, we had that great ending scene of Diana showing up at the fortress, going, "Okay, it's time for me to kick some butt." Then it goes right into the next one. Anticipation of just the fight between these two, I was really looking forward to. That was something that I was like, yes, this is going to get cool.
The background imagery always works for me too in Jim Lee's art. I really like the detail in the background imagery here. Though actually the whole creative team, it's a really nice artistic team and how they put together. I like that setting of the Fortress of Solitude. It's something very classic and iconic in Superman, and that's something that
they really delve into in this issue, the vastness. That was something that, one of the things that traditionally this series did for me was the opening monologue. I always miss who it is. I think it's one person and it's somebody else. And this opening monologue, just like all the other issues, really got me because you see these great scenes of Diana kind of like stalking around the fortress, and just the dialogue you think is her, but in reality it's really not. It's actually Clark talking.
Which we've seen with Father Leone and Clark before, which is I like those bits
consistently.
Yeah, it's actually been a very cool.
It's like the opening of every issue. It's like, oh man, we thought it was one person,
and they swerved me.
They got me,
many times.
Oh yeah.
Now, one thing we talked about this last time, Wonder Woman's costume. That's something I wanted to talk to each of you about. We see on the cover the very traditional, classic Wonder Woman outfit that we're used to seeing, with the the bikini outfit, that whole bit, and then we see on the inside a variation on her ceremonial garb / warrior outfit. What is your preference? Each of your preference on, because this is coming off of I've been going a lot to Gail Simone's Wonder Woman forum, which in between podcasts. I wish I had more time to hit forums, but that is a forum. I've got to be honest with you. I got to shout that one out. And you'll all be sorry. I tend to hit that forum quite a bit because it's a great forum community. There tends to be a bleed over of people between both forums, and it's just a great discussion of her work, which I'm really digging. So, and it's like it's a community that reminds me a lot of our forum community in its presentation. So I'm over there, and I saw this bit about where people were talking about what they like and dislike about Wonder Woman's outfit. So I want to ask the two of you, what are your preferences in Diana's outfit? What variations do you like? What don't you like, and why? So, Mandy, why don't we start with you? What is a Wonder Woman outfit to you? What is your thing with Wonder Woman?
I don't really care for the skirt, and we discussed this last time. Fighting in a skirt isn't very practical, and so I tend not to really like when she's wearing a skirt. But a lot of what we do see here is, other than the fact that she's wearing a skirt and she's got the cape this time, which is another, she probably does like to stay a little warmer, since she is in the Arctic. But this is pretty close to the way that I like to see her, other than the skirt and the cape. I mean, I have no problem with the cape that she's wearing. She's got like an extension on her boots this time, which, yeah, that works. But just the traditional, more of what we saw on the cover is the way I see her normally.
The very traditional, the classic.
Yes, the traditional, classic traditional. That's the way I like to see her. So.
What are your preferences, Jim?
Well, I do like the classic look, and she's one that I kind of like seeing just the regular, but when they start modifying and tweaking, depending on the scenario, is where I like seeing it. Like, I like seeing her in her full battle armor, that looks like the hardened leather, and even that hardened leather skirt type thing when she's going into a fight. I think they called it, the Screaming Chicken?
The Screaming Chicken.
Yes, I like the Screaming Chicken. I think it's a great thing for when she's going into battle. She's got the shield, the spear, and she's got that I'm gonna mess you up look. I like seeing that in the warrior in her. So for me, slight modifications to a costume is acceptable. Especially if it's situation warranted. If it's just, I feel like drawing it differently, then no, I don't. I'm like, hey, you know what? There's a reason it's a classic costume. Stick with it. But I see.
Go ahead, Mandy.
And I don't really mind that full body armor. I mean, I think really since I started reading, the only time that I've really seen her wear that is when her and Donna Troy and Wonder Girl went, when they were going up against Genocide a few issues back, and they all had, basically a different color. She had gold, and Donna Troy had silver, and Cassie had bronze. And I was like, hey, that was pretty cool, actually. It's like a show of solidarity. I don't mind that. And I guess I don't want to see it all the time. Like every battle she goes into, I don't want to see her, oh, yeah, let me put on my Screaming Chicken outfit first.
I agree with that a great deal, because one of the things I do like about her, and it fits the whole warrior theme, is the fact that she would accessorize based on battle situations. I think it's something that makes her slightly different than a Superman, for example, where Superman's going to wear something iconic, visible, that people are used to seeing because they find comfort in that. Because he really does see the symbolism of Superman. It's actually similar to the way that Bruce does. Bruce doesn't really change things up drastically unless it's an extreme situation where he'll don some crazy
where he
outfit.
Has to,
yeah. But he usually likes to keep that symbol of the mysterious bat with the flowing cape to give himself that like otherworldly, supernatural kind of feel.
Yeah.
I like that. But in her case, this kind of thing fits for me when she does it. Now, what about drawing of Diana? Do you guys prefer like the sleek and sexy, or do you prefer the more of the like stronger warrior look, or like we've seen in New Frontier? She has definitely the drawing in New Frontier was definitely more of a larger Amazon woman look, which I liked that too. It's funny how this character, I don't know, for me, I'll guess seeing as I'm throwing out the question, I'll start with it. For me, I like the variations in drawing of her. It just seems to kind of work. I don't know why for this character. I like when artists, there's storytelling reasons why they end up drawing her differently, which I'm not usually that way. I usually like a certain look for a character, but her evolution that way has kind of worked for me. I do like that right now there seems to be a sterner look to her, a more even though she's not drawn the same way that we see in New Frontier, there is something powerful in the way like Aaron Lopresti's drawing her right now, for example, right, which I really like. I don't know, what are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah.
Do you have a preference?
I really like the way Lopresti's drawing her right now too. I mean, I think one of the things is that you can see that she is a very strong warrior, and you can see, but at the same time you see her background, and you see, like different parts of her as a person popping up. Like she's not just a warrior, but she is a daughter, and she, is a princess, and and she maybe not so much anymore, but that she has desires other than, let's see how many people I can beat up today.
Being a princess is more than a title, though. And that's what I like about her.
Presence.
Yes.
There is something regal about her. At all times, whether you give her that title or not, she still is. And I do like that. I know exactly where you're going with that, Mandy. I do like that about the character.
Yes.
When she's drawn right, you can believe that any guy would drop their jaw at her. yet at the same time, she doesn't lose. She's very powerful. She's very strong. She's very regal. And that's I think, the attraction of the character. And it's an interesting line with her. You've got to keep that balance with her. Because that strength of hers cannot be lost. It's very important to me.
I think the Trinity series, that opening issue where they showed where Diana, Bruce, and Clark were all sitting in that cafe eating breakfast, and just the dialogue they had about her. One called her a supermodel, said, "Oh no, look at those broad shoulders. She's probably his bodyguard." And it was just, you had that whole thing going back and forth where they're trying to figure out who she was. She had both the beauty and the sex appeal that you would attribute to a supermodel, but there was still that powerful presence. So she's the sexy warrior, there's that duality in nature of who she is. She's the warrior diplomat, just the Amazon, but the hero, and it's, the inspiration and the leader. It's, there's so much. That is the strength of Wonder Woman, is the duality of her, who she is. And actually, all of the Trinity, there are the differences between who they are and who they present, who they project, and who the real person is. So it's, I like seeing that in the artwork with her.
I think Lee captured that here.
Oh, definitely.
I think it's one of the reasons why I brought it up, because it was something when I noticed in the artwork, I'm like, there really are certain qualities in my favorite Wonder Woman art that I really enjoy. Like right for that opening panel of her, do you know how this place makes me feel? When you look right at her face there is something powerful, something commanding. Like you would not in a million years think of messing with her, yet you want to talk to her.
Yeah.
But I would freak out. I know if I walked up and approached her, I would be like mumbling nonsense.
Dude, I would be humna.
You'd be immediately humbled.
Yes, yeah.
And
I would be mumbling nonsense.
But I mean it that way. It's actually, I'm glad you threw that in, because that's the way I mean it. I don't mean it in the sense like I was trying to ask her out or anything like that. But literally, you'd be in awe of this person.
Yeah.
There is something about her. And I think that's the interesting thing about this character when done right. And it's something, especially in the recent storytelling with her, that I've really come to appreciate, is how she does that.
No, yeah.
And yet she can be compassionate at the same time. It's an interesting. She is a very interesting character.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see she was in this story, because same thing like when we see Bruce. When you get a good Superman story, you should have all of the Trinity somehow involved into it and tied into it, just because the characters are so interwoven and so interconnected. Last issue we had where Bruce figured out what Superman's doing, but Diana also figured it out. So they know their friend well enough to know what's going on, and they have to react and respond to it. And this is, throughout this whole issue, we see Superman be a little bit manipulative. He's a little bit of an SOB even at times. We're seeing a different side of Superman, who is very calculating, very just, planning and just manipulative. I keep throwing that out there, but that's a good term for him in this issue, which is kind of a wow moment. And this opening where he's talking about just how vast and just how just awestruck he is sometimes about his own fortress, and Leone's right there saying, how do you think that makes me feel? Because he's right there. He's our eyes once again into this world of Superman, and I really, he's the character that throughout this whole issue, throughout this whole series, I really liked and really enjoyed and was glad he was there. And so it's definitely one of those situations where if we were him, if we were sitting there inside that fortress, we would have those whoa kind of reactions.
When Clark connects with people and shares his vulnerability, it's something that I really like about him. Because it does show that he is still, and I mean, forget the Kansas, I'll throw out the Kansas farm boy, but it really is, it shows his humanity. And that's, anytime you throw out the term Kansas farm boy, what you're really meaning is that's the part where you feel like you can reach him on the same level. Like you can have, guy talk, friend talk, or whatever you want to call it, where he could be sitting there in the chair and just hanging with you. You can hang with him. And he has those moments where he is so much trying to open up and so much trying to connect, because that's what his parents taught him to do. They taught him how to be a person, how to be accessible. He's not shut off. It's what separates him from Bruce, because Bruce doesn't very often make himself vulnerable like this, where Clark, in most cases,
welcomes it in some in some
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, because he is human and he wants that humanity so much. He doesn't like the fact that he's like those moments where we got to see, actually 1 year later, where we got to see him without powers.
Yeah.
Those were some of the happiest moments of his life, being just Clark Kent.
Being a normal guy.
Yeah, and it is. I love seeing those moments because he is an interesting character with that type of thing.
And some of the stuff going on between him and Leone was actually kind of, once again, it was just him opening up and exposing just the vulnerability of himself. Because he was sitting there just talking to Leone, saying, "Hey, I wanted to show you the fortress," and Leone is immediately like figuring, "Before I die," and Clark's like, "No." So you can better understand me. And you can see he's even throughout all their discussions about the humanity and just his nature, he still wants Leone that final piece just into who he is. And I ate that up just as they're talking, especially this was another sequence where the artwork was a great way to, give us the feel and the mood that Clark is going through. A lot of the images, his head's kind of ducked down. There's heavier shadows once again. Even a couple sequences of the cape, they're kind of draped over him more.
There's another point to this, though, because Clark is trying to reassure himself, trying to one last time go through with somebody there to witness. And I don't mean witness in the sense like he's looking for verification, but he needs this moment to really make sure that the path he's going on is the right route to go in his mind. And I do think there's that part of him that needs that, because his normal confidant, Lois,
isn't around anymore.
Right. And he's distanced himself so much that we're not going to see Ma Kent or Pa Kent.
Yeah, or Bruce or Diane or any of the other JLA. He's separated himself from them.
But Leone's been this guy that he's kind of made his confidant again at this point.
Now, the one interesting point from this conversation I liked was when Leone basically confronts him about, did you come to me as a confidant because you knew I was going to die? And Clark admits, yes. He's like, in some ways, I'm only human. And I thought that, was a kind of a powerful moment because we're seeing, as I said, a little bit of manipulation right there. Is that manipulation? Is that being intelligent? Is that proper planning?
Or is that because a part of himself has died?
Right. I don't know.
And I think he sees something that he recognizes in what Leone's going through. I don't know if it's so much manipulation there. Because I've really been rethinking through this, and I don't know this particular. He's definitely Superman's being very manipulative in this, and we'll definitely talk about that in a minute, because that is something that in my initial read-throughs, and this was a big issue with this guy, was the way Superman was manipulating people in this. But I don't know at this point in time if he chose Father Leone to be manipulative, or because in many ways we saw in the beginning of this, Clark Kent died in a lot of this. He was just Superman at this point. He'd given up that life as Clark Kent. And I do think that is interesting because that death of himself and Lois, his heart.
Yeah, his heart and soul's gone.
I think that was something that in many ways he connected through the plight of Leone. He was having a crisis of faith the same way Leone was. And I think he found, hopefully that they could help each other, maybe through their own problems.
They're both the type of people that other people look up to be able to solve their problems. So I think Clark probably saw a little bit of, here's somebody who maybe on a smaller scale, but here's someone who might be able to understand just a little bit what I'm going through.
And I think they believe in something greater than themselves.
Yeah, they each do.
Yeah.
Because Clark believes in the strength of the human spirit, and that the belief that people can be better than what they are, and that's like the symbol that he tries to project. That is, what as Superman he tries to bring about. And I think that's an interesting thing about Clark, that he tries to do that. And Father Leone obviously believes in God, and he's a leader of the church, and they're both having a crisis of faith in both, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I kind of liked when Clark continues on and he says he actually told Leone a lie. And Leone tries to lighten the mood about, saying, hey, that's what confessions are for, but it's still, I found it interesting because I could see myself in Leone's situation where you throw out a lie, you throw that out line, you're trying to get a one-liner and it just completely bombs. And I could just, I kind of felt bad for the guy because I could see what he was trying to do. He was trying to keep things lighter, try to keep things going. Because I think also
a line that he's used in church, though, many times for people who have come to him and said, on my last confession, I told you a lie, or I didn't quite. Because I would imagine as a priest, or any religious figure, when somebody comes to you as a confidant, they probably don't always tell you the complete truth, especially if they know you well.
Yeah.
There would be omissions in what you're saying.
Some stuff you quote unquote accidentally forget to tell the priest. Just because you're like, I don't want the priest looking at me, like I'm some freakazoid every Sunday and saying, oh, that's the guy that does this. And no, I'm not speaking from personal experience.
That's what I was wondering that. I'm like,
Sean's giving me the look like, Jim, what are you saying? I'm like, I wouldn't do that. Come on.
And how exactly do you know this, Jim?
It's my exploration of human nature. That's yeah. That's the ticket. That's the thing. I'm going to stick with that.
From the first person point of view.
No, of course not. Now, Superman's lie though was a doozy. That he said that he told them that he didn't think the vanishings were going to happen, and now he's saying no, there's going to be one more vanishing. And I thought that was just kind of a cool moment, just an epilogue, not epilogue.
Well, it's Superman's feeling guilt right there. Yeah. That's really what it is at this point, because he now knows that he's responsible for all this.
Yeah.
And he's carrying that on his shoulders. And that, when you were talking about the shadows before and how you could see the look on his face of what he's going through, that's really coming from the fact that this man now has realized all of this was his fault. Best intentions gone wrong.
Oh, definitely.
And that is
best
science.
intentions.
I mean, that is something a scientist deals with. The fact that if you implement something that's your creation, it could go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It's you think about all the different people who have invented great inventions that have been used against, like dynamite. Was first invented to help clear the roads and mining, and just it was visioned that it would be this great thing to build up new cities and just build up railways and trails and finish. And it was immediately first thing turned into like a weapon. It was weaponized. And every great invention of somewhere along the way had this peaceful meaning to it, and that it got turned into a weapon.
That is human nature.
It goes back to the rock. Something as simple as a rock was used by cavemen to crush things or to break open a hardened shell of an animal. Got turned into hey, I could bash that guy in the head with this rock and take his thing. So it is kind of a weirdness of us, who we are.
The shot of Diana here, where she's stalking him. I love she's crouched down in this. It totally shows her warrior. She knows she's got to sneak up on this guy. She knows this
she's
guy.
She's ready to pounce.
Yeah, but she also knows that he has super hearing. So she's doing everything she can to get as close as possible to gain an advantage off of a man who has super speed, and who basically, in many ways, is her superior in strength.
Yeah.
So she really has to rely on her warrior knowledge as an edge and as an advantage, which does make her an interesting combatant with him. I'm so glad that they chose her for this story instead of Batman.
Yes.
Now, I love Batman versus Superman, and I like Batman versus Green Lantern and Batman versus I like
because you show his
fights.
Prep and you show what he does to actually plan for it. Whereas Diana, there's no extra. Well, there is extra prep because that term you use stalking is perfect because that is actually her stalking the prey. But
also the reason why she didn't choose the battle armor.
Right.
Now that we think about it, because if she chose that full-blown battle armor, the Screaming Chicken or whatever, if she chose to wear all that into this, she wouldn't be as stealthy.
Yeah, true. And I kind of also took it as another way because you think about when we actually get to the
fight.
Jim,
I'm right.
When we actually get to the fight sequence between the two of them, she is trying to talk him down. And she is trying to stop him. So for me, I would say going in with the full battle armor would give the impression that she thinks
she was ready to fight.
Yeah, this is the only way. Whereas if she goes in how she is, there could be a little bit more of an explanation.
So you think from her introductory dialogue here, Kal-El, get away from that machine, that she is here to communicate peacefully?
I think so.
Step away.
Yeah.
And no one has to get hurt.
Instead of saying, Kal-El, I'm just here to talk.
Well, if she said, I'm just here to talk, that would really be just kind of, it would be a lie. She's not just there to talk, but if there's a way that this can be handled non-violently, she would have, if he would have stepped away from the machine and said, okay, let's talk, she would have talked. Whereas to say I'm just here to talk is a lie.
Because she's completely in a warrior stance.
Yeah,
and so
she's
is
ready
he.
to fight.
I mean, I think the two of them, I do think that I agree with you in the sense that she would like this to be peaceful as much as possible. So I'm really just teasing there. But I do think that the two of them are well aware that there's probably no way that's going to happen. I think that would be both of their preferences. And I think that it's an interesting balance in this fight sequence because I agree with you. I actually do agree with you that I think that is an element of this as well that they don't want to throw down if they can avoid it.
And just this beautiful artwork. You know, we're talking about her and him in battle position. She's got the shield and sword up. He's got the red eyes just ready to go. It was a eagerly anticipated, and it was a fight sequence that paid out for me in just paid out in spades. And the thing I also digged is Azzarello never gave up with cool inner dialogue as well as cool outward dialogue between the two of them. Just when he draws the line in the sand, basically with the heat vision, draws a line right at her feet saying, I'm not backing down. And she's going, hey, this is suicide. And I just...
Even before that, though, if you take a look at this, I've thought about, and this is something with the artwork, I've thought long and hard about this, and it's the only way. Take a look at the look on his face and that posture right there. Talk about a great use of artwork there. You see right there that he has got the weight of the world on his shoulders right there. He totally knows he's responsible. And I love that visual display as well, that matched the dialogue so well, because you're looking at that, and if I saw anybody like that, I've seen you like that. You've seen me like that. I mean, this is something that's like, it's very honest and very real. You know what that emotion is from that page. That takes a talent to convey that visually.
Oh, definitely.
Like, you could take that dialogue balloon out, and we know right away dude's thinking about something really deep.
And it adds to her feelings of that he's doing this as a grieving husband. This is suicide. And she's going to stop her friend from committing suicide, which gives us that great line between the two of them where she's like, hey, this blade is tempered in magic, and I won't be afraid to use it. And he's like, so you'll kill me to prevent me from doing what you think is suicide. I loved that banter. I love that bits between the two of them, and... so on top, we got this cool fight sequence. We got a dialogue that is not only true between these two characters, but it's true between two longtime friends. If I saw you going down what I would think would be a death spiral, I would try to stop you. And if I had to, I would, drop you if I had to stop you from, from killing yourself.
Is she also worried, though, that he's not only going to hurt himself, but others by causing another vanishing?
See, I didn't take it as that.
Or are they really just concerned about him hurting himself?
Him hurting himself. That's when I was reading this, it never entered my mind that either her or Bruce from the previous issue thought that there would be another massive vanishing. They knew only one person.
He's responsible, right?
I don't think so.
Because when Bruce comes back and says he knows what? He knows that he did it. I have to think that because remember Bruce said back in the previous issues, he knows, and told it to Diana. I guess I started really thinking at that point, I'm like, Bruce and Diana have figured this out. They know he did this. Bruce as a detective, wouldn't they figure out the same thing Clark did? Wouldn't they connect the dots and realize there's only one mind on this planet that could have constructed that technology?
That could be.
Could they have gone through the steps? Bruce especially?
Yeah, Bruce.
But at the same time, even if they've figured out that he was the one responsible, do they know that he's figured out how to focus it yet?
That's my question. I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's questioning there.
Because at that point, it's like, well, yeah, he created it, but does he know how to focus it? And by doing that, is he possibly, by starting the vanishing again, is he going to be taking other people with him?
Because every other vanishing occurrence has taken a ton of people.
And the reason I don't think they think that is because of her dialogue with him. If they thought for a second that more than just him would disappear, she would use that against him. She would say that, saying, hey, this isn't just going to be you that goes. You're going to take other people with you. She would have thrown out the innocent lives in danger thing, because that's the great action to take against Superman, is to throw out that innocent lives are in danger. She's never once mentioned innocent lives. She's talking about him killing himself. So that for me is what I think they think he knows how to fix it. He knows how to focus it, and he knows so it's only going to be him.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I could see that still being a question mark because he really just revealed it to Father Leone. I could see that both ways. So I don't know. I would almost be interested to talk to Diana and Bruce and say, "Hey,
Yeah, what was going through your mind?
What were you thinking when that happened?
Well,
An
next
interview.
time I
What was
talk to him, I'll ask him.
What was going through your mind?
As,
It's like a talk show.
as you were kicking Clark through the ceiling
Yeah,
at a helicopter.
Yeah, and that was just, as we said, just a great fight sequence. And we get to see what we were talking about, how Superman becomes a little bit of a, not Superman, because he goes up to the helicopter.
Oh, he was a manipulative SOB.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's weird, seeing him do this, but he goes up there, and not only does he not keep the innocent civilians out of harm's way, he directly puts Orr in danger. Uses him as a weapon against Diana, which was something that was huge.
This was an issue that I had. Do you think he really was putting Orr in danger here? There's a couple of sequences in this particular issue where there was a life or death situation for these two characters. Now, if Orr got into real trouble, like Clark was using him as a chess piece here, very not like Clark, and that bothered me, especially in my initial read through. I was like, "Woo, would Clark do this?" Now, considering the weight of the world on his shoulders and what we saw has been going on through the previous issues, the loss of Lois, the responsibility of all this, I've really got to believe right now that what we're dealing with, Superman at his core is still here. He put Orr in danger, but if Orr really at any point in time, if Diana was not able to handle it, or Father Leone,
I think Superman would have been there for him.
That's my concern on that.
Yeah.
When I was reading this, I did have some whoa kind of moments, but in the back of my mind, I still thought that Clark knew what Diana is capable of. He knew, if he's using the helicopters, he knew that he or directly would not be in danger just because of what she's capable of. She knows him, he knows her. They know each other like the back of their hands. And he's playing the manipulative game, so he's
with the blood drop, even
right.
Going way back to earlier on when he takes that blood drop and he's got it on his finger and he's flicking it back at her. He's really at that point in time trying to make points, getting into her head. Yeah. And really playing on a level that we're not used to seeing Superman play on, which I thought was really interesting on here. And it was a fine line on this story that I did have trouble with. I'm not saying I do now, but I did have a lot of trouble with. I really had to dig deep and say to myself, okay, what do I believe he would do if things went wrong? I am still at this point, and I think you can hear it from the way I'm describing this, not 100% comfortable that he would put them in this position. Because he put two people in a life and death situation.
And I still think, I still hold on to the fact that Superman is inside there, and these people really weren't in 100% danger. Because, but you look at, because he's been laid out this plan all along. He knew that Bruce and Diana would figure out what's going on. He knew that it would be Diana who can make it to the fortress in time. So he knew he was going up against her. He rigged up the fortress that when there was a break-in, a smash through that, when Diana made her entrance, which she smashes through the ceiling, it sets off the self-destruct sequence. So he had all this planned ahead of time. So he knew that my guess is he may have even heard with his super hearing Orr up there. So when he got kicked up there, he's like, okay, let's bring Orr into play now. I got to put these other chess pieces in play so Diana has to choose between innocent people and going after the device. And we even see the one time when she does make the zip towards the device with speed, he gets there in front of her and, does the backhand, knocks her across the fortress. Now, yes, that is an outward, a violent action, but you think about what the different attacks he could have done. That was more of a defensive posturing. He was protecting the protecting the chess piece, but he was protecting the orb, so he could use it. He didn't want Diana to break it, didn't want her to damage it, but he was, not going to, if he had crossed over, if he had, not been Superman, he could have very easily risked the lives of the innocent people, but he
also
didn't.
Could have done something that would have caused her more harm.
Right. He could have,
that deliberately was to get her away from it versus, he could have picked up an object, done something that would have, really done some damage to her, which was not what he was going for. And I do agree with you, that distinction's important.
Because you think about it, he could have probably knocked her out cold. he's got that superhuman strength, and he was in position
Or
where
hurt her.
yeah, or seriously hurt her. But he's just trying to slow her down, trying to stop her. And even the dialogue between them as they're fighting, when she's like, hey, it's like the disappeared people, they're dead. Our only hope is that they did not suffer. And Clark's like, no, they're still out there. I have faith. And it was just that you still see that faith,
And that's a double edge, because he also has faith in her.
Right.
And he's playing a game here, a very dangerous game of he has faith in what's going to happen with the orb. He has faith in her that these two men will be rescued by her and pulled out of there. There's a lot of gambles that he's placing on faith at this moment, which is interesting because I think we're seeing him a renewal of his faith here.
Yeah.
Where Father Leone, I don't know that we ever truly see it again. I question it. Whether some when we get to those later issues, we'll have to talk about, because I think that's something we all have a question mark on, is what exactly is his status at the end, Father Leone. But I do think we start to see, not a complete renewal of his faith here, but we are starting to see more of, towards the end of this sequence, the man kind of coming through. It's an interesting dance between him and Diana here. It's one that, even at this point, I'm still...
Yeah,
it's on an interesting fine line that it could tip either way very quickly, and it's the definition of a dance between two people on this.
Well, we've seen him do the super bluff earlier, where he threatened to completely destroy the Earth, against the elemental creatures. So we are seeing a more, manipulative. I'm a little bit, not the Boy
stuff
Scout.
With him, the manipulative part of him is really something that those were, in my initial read-throughs especially, I had major problems with.
And this is what kind of happens to Superman when he loses that human connection. We're seeing in Smallville where Clark doesn't really have his human connection anymore, and he's changed a little bit. And Jor-El wants him definitely to sever his human ties, thinking that's his weakness. Whereas we both know that, we all three of us know that is Clark's strength.
It's his strength.
That's what makes him, Superman.
And he's trying to find his way back to that here, and that is really important for me, because I did not see this initially the first time through this way at all. Where he was coming full circle, and we were seeing him come back to that. And that is a distinction that is really important for me here. We see the man, he was hit with so much, the loss of his wife, the loss of so many people, then the ultimate realization that all of this was somehow his fault. First of all, his fault for being away, then his fault for when he came back, and his realizing that this technology was his fault.
His idea, and he built it.
A lot of these things became a massive weight on his shoulder. People screaming out, "Superman, save me!" and that one heart that he was looking for not being there. These are just, it's an interesting responsibility that he has. I do got to say, it's one of the things this story made me realize is I would not want to be Superman.
Oh God, no!
I would love his powers, but the responsibility of this guy.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think I'm strong enough character to be Superman. There's so much. You look at just what he could do and how easily that could be corrupted. Just when he went through into that Middle Eastern, African, whichever nation it is, and just swept away all the guns. Earlier in this series, and he thought he was going to end war there. No, he just they picked up rocks and started throwing at each other. That's the type of stuff where if I had that power, I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I could take away all the guns. I could do all this. I could bring world peace single-handedly. No, you can't. You can't change human nature. You can't change the people. You can take a gun out of their hands, but if you don't,
they're just going to find something else.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Even when he goofs up, though, and in those sequences, one of the strengths of Superman that I've always enjoyed is the fact that this guy keeps trying. He will find a new way to approach it. He will try to correct a mistake if he makes it. Where he will. We saw that back in that sequence where he realized, okay, the political change here is something that in the people right now want. I need to do what I can to help these people get back on their feet and kind of correct a misunderstanding that I was involved in. And we've seen this in Superman stories throughout his history where, the initial battle will be something where he realizes he was on the wrong side and he tries to correct that error and tries to help out and tries to repair those things. And it is something that I like about him at his core. That's a human side of him that I think really works. And it's something that we all learn from Superman. It's part of his symbolism. There is a symbol to that guy, but I would not want to be this man in a million years. The responsibility it involves.
Yeah, I would like to be his confidant and his friend, though. I would love to be Jimmy Olsen. I'll be honest with you.
Who would that be?
That would be
I'm all over that.
Yeah.
Or his part-time sidekick.
Or just, a member of the JLA so I could have satellite privileges, but not actually have a lot of duties and responsibilities.
I'd like to be his Monday, Wednesday, Friday pal.
Yeah.
Where I get a little break. I mean, no, I'm saying it in a joking way, but I'm being honest. I mean, it would be fun to be like, you talk about volunteer police and stuff like that. I would love to be Superman's volunteer super sidekick. Where I had powers and stuff, but like I actually had a life in there as well. Because it is interesting. I do like that about his character, the marriage and everything. how he's got to juggle a work job, with being a reporter at the Daily Planet. He has to juggle a marriage. He has to juggle being a hero. I
want to know where he finds time to write novels.
Yeah.
Because he's like he
doesn't sleep.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to sleep at all.
Yeah.
Is what it seems to me.
Well, I agree. I totally agree with you. It's just got to be. Well, novel writing must come incredibly easy to him because of his experiences. He's
probably
the amount of content he can pull from compared to the rest of us.
And
I think that is one of the advantages.
And if he can type at superhuman speed, that probably helps him out as well.
I would love to be his keyboard salesman. Because those things are breaking left and right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've worn down my W key on my keyboard, and I'm just me, normal person. So I can imagine his is got to be fried. Is that because you keep
typing whatnot?
Actually, it's City of Heroes. The W key is the run key. Mm-hmm. So I'll hold down the W key.
Run away!
Yeah. Oh, hey, travel powers. Come on. You got to move.
I'm sorry. I couldn't.
So your hero likes to run.
Mm-hmm.
Only if there's bridges involved. And yes, I do have a bridge man on in City of Heroes.
This sequence of Diana,
the final sequence,
when she's flying back down, is just beautiful.
Yeah,
she's very graceful in the way she uses her powers. Like she's speeding down, and there's a determination on her face to get to them on time, pull them out. I'm still, with how close it was to her pulling them out, that is still an issue I have that Superman put them in that position. I'm not entirely comfortable with that, even at this point. It is. I know it's story driven with where his head was at that whole time. It is something. It's a line for me that I'm still not comfortable with, because I look at how close it is with that explosion, her pulling them out.
I still cling to the fact that if she had called his bluff, if she had said no, I'm not going to help them, he would have then gone in and saved them. He probably would have gone in, grabbed the orb, and taken off that way. But I still think there's still enough of Superman in there that he would have found the way to save all of them.
Now, do you think he was counting down as they were escaping to make sure they got out before he actually used the device?
My guess is as soon as she broke in his head, he was running a countdown. Yeah. In his head, going through, he knew exactly how much time he had. Because that's why he picked that point in time to tell her, hey, you got to get them out of here.
Especially the way the base is destroyed. If you take the way the fortress is destroyed, she's flying away, and we do see in the next page that he is still able to vanish at that point. So he technically could have been watching all that, and could have, if she wasn't making it, flown through and pulled them out.
Right.
And I have to believe he would have done that, because if I believe on any level he would have let them die to pull this off, then that's where the line is for me, that was totally not Superman at all.
And
he can't cross that line.
Well, and that's, if you look at, he's the one who told her, hey, go get them. So he knew how much time he had left in the countdown. He knew how much time it would take for her to grab them and fly them out of there. And there was still even probably some time left over, because you look and you see, we don't actually see him activate the device, but we know he's not there.
I want to talk to him right now for doing this. I really do. I'm really annoyed that he did this. It bothers me. It's a personal affront.
Yeah.
I do like his outline, seeing that they're on the floor and seeing his father and his mother there. And Father, my sin was trying to save the world. It is, and going back to trying to take a lesson from his father, and as a scientist himself, trying to better that, it is interesting.
Hole in a donut.
Issue 212. Yeah. Now, this cover was another one of those really cool looking covers where it had the Superman kind of in like the red lightning bolt. And then when you flip the next page, you see the variant cover is Lois and Clark flying together. So that was something, seeing the two covers, I was like, okay, what is that? What's the other one?
Well, this is him traveling through the vanishing, because we never actually see that.
Right. Well, we know that now. Yeah. When I first saw it, I didn't realize what it could be.
Yeah. But that's what I like about that, because it's actually the cover's actually a story element.
Yeah.
Because we never actually see what it's like for anybody to really travel through the vanishing.
Yeah. Now, when the issue opens up and we see all that red and and all that, I initially thought that was Superman traveling through the vanishing. Because I was thinking maybe it's somehow connected with the bleed, tie in that way. And of course, as you read on,
bleed.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's what I was thinking.
The bleed hadn't been introduced in the DCU at this point. That shows the difference of...
Oh, okay. So I thought the bleed was around forever. That shows the difference in our reading experience. No, the bleed was something that was brought over from Wildstorm. And that was much later. So that's interesting how...
What is this bleed of which you speak?
The bleed would be when the travel through the multiverse, they travel through the bleed to get from one universe to the other. That was something that was introduced much later. The concept that they traveled through something was always there, but it was never defined as the bleed until in recent years. But that's funny, because you would have read this after your introduction to the bleed, so I can totally understand why you would think that. That never even dawned on me.
And, it's funny because when you look at it, you really see it's, of course, blood, with the red blood cells and the various stuff. And it's Leone in his healing tube getting, quote unquote, healed of his cancer, which,
that's debatable.
I loved these sequences, but it hurt so much seeing this person who I considered myself. I saw myself as Father Leone. This is the kind of guy, that's who I would want to be. This is the kind of friend I would want to be Superman. And when you start seeing what happens to him now,
you want to be a friend that's shoved in a bleeding? No.
Exactly. This is what I didn't want to happen to him. Now, I kind of, the whole time, as soon as they introduced
this is the kind of friend I want you to be to Superman.
Oh, thanks.
I agree with you.
Now, one of the things that really impressed me, and this is something that always impresses me with Azarella's writing, is just the detail that he will go with, in telling some of these stories. Just this, I knew this was happening. I knew this was going to happen. As soon as they introduced that he had cancer and Or said he could heal him, I knew what was going to happen throughout the process. But seeing it actually unfold and seeing what process is in place, how they had to do it, the explanation of how cancer is used as basically like a power cell battery, to amplify and control and or to handle these mutations that they're doing, the augmentation to them, was a great just story element.
This predates OMAC Project and the OMACs as we know them today in the DC universe. So it was interesting that they did go to the OMAC concept for this, though. I liked that this was the government's new version of the OMACs, and this is what they were going to do at that point. But this does predate all of that. I'm assuming this story's out of continuity now.
Well, yeah, probably. Well, parts of it are, but parts of it aren't.
Yeah. This is before Infinite Crisis, right. So all those changes that happened through Infinite Crisis, one of the changes would be some of the elements of this change due to Infinite Crisis.
Yeah. Now, the one thing throughout the sequence that I didn't catch the first time, it literally was maybe second or third read through, when you see Leone in the tube getting changed, he's got I'm assuming is a gang tattoo on him. Because when you look at it, it looks like the Latin king type crown. Mm-hmm. It's got the number in there. A lot of times numbers are signifying like 187 is homicide, or it could be a neighborhood, it could be his own, and that's something and that's something that got to me because you start thinking about Leone's past. This was probably somebody who was running with the gang. He was running with the bad crowd. He needed his way out. His way out was his faith. We had that great introductory. Or
maybe there was something that happened in his past that made him want to change his life.
Yeah.
He could have done this when he was young, in his teens, maybe even early 20s. I would say teens. This very much looks like he was part of a teenage gang or something like that. And the history that was alluded to, especially in the first issue, when we see him with the girl and all that there was definitely something to his past that.
There was something there, and the fact that she's a cop now.
Yeah. Both of them
really
on their way out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, and it's the one of the things they do say, it's hard, it's blood in, blood out. So you really can't get out, but you become a priest, you become a cop. Those are ways you get out of that lifestyle. Is you're either a cop or a crook. You're either a priest or a sinner or a saint. It's there is no middle ground. Well, I think I'll just leave the gang life and become a shop owner. Yeah, I'll run the neighborhood deli. And I'll be a nice guy. No, you don't do. There's the extreme measures to get out of that.
And also maybe some redemption.
Definitely seeking redemption, and that's
guilt by association often leads you to want to become a leader in a different way, maybe to help other people to avoid the path you went on. That's why you become a spiritual leader and a community leader, because he was very distraught when the children weren't coming back to mass.
Right.
And, when he was losing some of his parishioners, that he felt like that was his chance to make a connection with them. And losing them and losing that whole thing was really tough for him.
Oh, definitely. And, it's, that's the one thing with him where, as I've said a couple times, he was my eyes into this world. And, just seeing him going through this suffering, going through this torturing was just heartbreaking. And then we see how Orr is reacting to all this, and this is a character I want to hate this guy because he is scum, but I am so impressed with the writing as to who he is and just how he handles these situations that I can't hate him.
Wolverine's another character I wouldn't want to be. Because when I look at what this guy went through, Leone, it's similar on some levels to what Wolverine went through with the pain that he's going through and things like that. Like Wolverine, growing up, Wolverine was one of the cooler characters that I was reading. He was my in DC it was Batman, in Marvel it was Wolverine, and I was reading both of them, and I really loved the X-Men at that point, but Wolverine, especially the Weapon X storyline and all that, you watch the current Wolverine Origins of the movie, you look what that guy went through. It is not a good life to be Wolverine. That's constant pain. He's mentioned in comic storytelling multiple times. Every time that pops the claws, it hurts. Every time it heals, it hurts. Claire in Heroes has kind of alluded to the fact that there's some pain involved in what she goes through, I believe. But I think as she's gotten...
She's losing the pain.
Yeah, but I thought that was initially there was some pain, and then that has eventually dwindled over time.
Yeah, as
and
time
I think that's why
shifted.
she started questioning her own humanity, I think. And that I wouldn't want that either. I don't know if I'd want to get to the point where I don't feel anything anymore. So it's interesting that some of these characters that have these powers that look very attractive on paper, when you see the side effects, I don't know if I'd want to feel nothing. I don't know if I'd want to feel constant pain. I'd want to feel nothing over constant pain. So Claire definitely has the better end of the stick right now. But, looking at what Leone's going through right now, that guy is in agony.
Yeah.
I would not want to go through that for superpowers.
No, and that's the interesting thing with, would you go through this? Would you become, this new version of OMAC, this new Equus, this whatever Leone, is going to become? Would you want to go through that? And it was funny when I was reading this the first time through, the thing that popped in my head, of course, was RoboCop. When I saw that movie and I saw who RoboCop was, and it was the cop who gets, gunned down, and they make him cybernetic, and he's able to be the justice, and he's able to fight back his humanity and get control of himself. I was, I'm watching this going, okay, I'd do that. If they had RoboCop 2, they initially took volunteers. I would have been one of those guys who said, okay, I'll sign up for that.
He was even by the end of that, though, and that's one area where I disagree with you. I'm not saying you're wrong for feeling this way. I wouldn't want to be him, because even at the end of it, he wasn't 100% himself. And that is the one area, you take away my mind, what little of it I have, but that would be something that I would not want to lose. And Peter Weller's character, when he went through that, was a great thing about the movie. I was looking at that, and that was another character that I really enjoyed, the first movie especially. But by the end of it, I did not want to be him, because I'd want to hang with him. It's another, similar to what we were talking about with Superman.
Yeah.
I'd want to hang with RoboCop. It'd be cool, because especially at the age that we saw RoboCop, how cool would it have been to bring RoboCop to school with you? You'd be everybody's friend because you're friends with RoboCop, But I mean, that would be the end of it, though, because he literally, by the end, still was not completely himself.
See, he's actually the one I wouldn't mind becoming RoboCop. Now, yeah, actually, I probably would if there was if we could actually go through that process and we could actually make the cybernetic thing. I would probably volunteer for that. That's something.
Even though you were losing yourself in the process.
Well, see, that's the whole thing. I would have to maintain to the sensei. I would still have to be me. I couldn't give up. I wouldn't want to give up that.
That was a side effect of the process,
right? Well, and yeah, so that is the kind of the downside to it. You do lose a little bit of that, but there's still. I would like to think that me as a person, my core being would still be there, and I would come through, and I would be it would be Robo whatnot. I would be instead of
first thing I'd put in there would be an MP3 player. Every time you started to sing, it would kick on the iPod instead.
Oh, come on, man. That'd be awesome.
I fully support that upgrade.
Yeah. And wait, be honest with you, you would not have to pay that expense yourself.
Oh, okay. You'd pay for that?
I would gladly.
Is that going to be standard?
Oh, yeah.
On all new models?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, all new models that try to sing.
Come on, man. I have a golden voice.
Either that or a robo muzzle.
Satellite radio standard. Yeah.
I've been told by multiple people that I have a golden voice.
I would kill to have your remote control. You'd be like,
I'm going to need names and phone numbers of those multiple.
Yeah, okay.
I like the idea of you being Robo Whatnot.
Yeah.
This is growing on me more and more. I still don't want it for me.
Oh, okay.
But I would totally support it for you.
Oh, great. Well, we just need the technology, and I'll do it.
You know what the funny thing is? I was thinking about the $6 Million Priest.
Yeah.
I've got to say, I'm sorry, no, I'm going. But you got to.
Wow, a lightning bolt just flew through the thing.
You got to admit, I would be at his parish every Sunday.
Oh yeah.
I would. I would be there. I want to hear what he's got to say. I'd be believing it.
Yeah.
With some of his upgrades, I'd be terrified not to be there because you know that there'd be something in there that it would like immediately catch that you're a parishioner and he'd have all your home data and everything. Like if you didn't show up on Sunday,
he would know.
He's gonna hunt you down.
Yeah, he'd be at your.
Where were you this morning? I'm sleeping in.
I'd probably go to Saturday night and Sunday mass just to make sure he saw me. Yeah. But I mean, wow! Talk about a way to get
talk about an increase in listener, and parish participation, and just attendance. That definitely would work for you. Now,
listener participation. Yeah. What is he, a podcast?
I don't know.
Or are we back to Robo Whatnot?
Right, I meant parish participation.
I know. That'd be cool, though.
What?
Like a priest that, like...
Oh, Robo Priest?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. That'd be... You know what? It would be a definitely interesting discussion of the human soul. What is the soul?
Sure.
Does it survive? Does it make it through into the cybernetics? I don't know.
Well, I think we see the answer to that question in the end, though.
Yeah. And
so we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Or... no, I don't know, though. I don't know that fully answers that because I think some of his turmoil goes through there, too. We'll talk about that as we get to that. But
now, going to Superman, as he's arriving.
Gorgeous art there.
I love that, how it was the
beautiful.
Very faint, and it just slowly came into color. Then by the time he's actually there, arrived, you got that full pop of color. You got just this completely foreign country, foreign world type, just really sci-fi, and it was just absolutely beautiful. Just like, wow, this is, oh my God, I want to live there.
And that was something I've got to commend him on. He really, when he went to create this, he wanted to create something that was like an artistic masterpiece. And that is really, like, I would love to go there as a vacation spot.
It's like Easter in the prehistoric Bahamas.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
You're absolutely correct. Like an Easter parade.
Yeah. Just the colors that he uses. And you think there's a lot of water there, beaches. Yeah, it looks like tropical island. But then the kinds of animals that are flying through the air is like, wow, this is not like...
We're not in Kansas
time. Yes, we're definitely not in Kansas. So it's Easter in prehistoric Bahamas.
I love how these flying fish turn into the Lollipop Guild.
And I'm not even going to sing the Lollipop Guild song. I didn't sing it, even though as soon as you said it, I was just about to throw it out there, but
That's okay, Sean did it for you.
Yeah. Now, the scenes with Superman and Clark together, and this is a stupid confession on my part, and I fully admit I kicked myself when I didn't realize it, but I didn't know I didn't know Clark was Robo Clark. It didn't even enter my head that that was a robot version of him. I was thinking that this was a separation between the human from Clark, from Kal-El, and that's why he was going, that's part of the reason he was so cold and calculated, and he wasn't really himself. I was thinking, okay, somehow like Superman 2. No, 3. Superman 3, when we saw the separation of Clark, Superman and Clark on two different sides.
That's one of my favorite bits from that movie.
Yeah. That was actually one of the only really good parts of that movie was that separation of the two. There was a lot of really bad stuff in that movie, but
when he bursts out of that trash compactor though and opens up his shirt, that was a cool moment.
Yeah,
he's screaming in there, and that was awesome. But as we're looking at this, I gotta say that I think this is where our reading experiences are different. Like when my issue with the whole cancer bit on the last episode, although I loved Stephen King's commentary when he came back and said, guys, he probably wouldn't have said he could try to cure cancer to spare his feelings, and he's right. I think it was Stephen King. And if it's not, it was one of our listeners sent us in an email, and I thought it was a great point to say that, guys, he wouldn't have said that he could do it just to spare his feelings, and I do think that's a very Superman thing where he would have shied away from doing that unless he could really do it. But I grew up with Superman as a scientist. A lot of my reading came from reading Silver Age Superman stories that I got from flea markets, because it was great. We'd go to a flea market. My parents had a cabin out in Pennsylvania that we'd go to, and then they bought a trailer out there, and that was like our summer little getaway. Every weekend we'd go out there. And we'd go to flea markets. That was the best place in the world because I would walk out of there with a box of comics for next to nothing. Yeah, the covers were torn and the pages were ripped and stuff like that, but, I mean, they were very readable. And I would walk out with all kinds of characters that I couldn't normally read. I had a subscription to Batman. I had a subscription to Justice League and X-Men. But, all the other characters I was able to read in that time, I was lucky enough to read in back issues if we got them at flea markets. And this stuff, Superman as a scientist, where he had robot clones and robot copies that he built and that they were almost human, and that they could have conversations with him, and that they, were sentient to a certain extent. And so that was the first thing I thought, but can totally understand because that hasn't been a part of recent continuity. We don't see the super, robots as a regular part of it.
And I do really smack myself in the head when we realize with this robot, I did that.
No, but your idea makes a lot of sense, especially with his behavior early on. I could totally see how you would think that there was some split. It would explain a lot of his behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually do get where that came from, but I think we saw it differently just because I saw it differently from both of you because of reading experiences, right. I think.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a right and wrong there.
Now, I did like this dialogue between them, just the focus. And it was funny, when he first arrives, he does listen for his heart and he hears her, but he doesn't go initially to Lois because he's got to take care of stuff. He still has the orb there, and he trusts in the Robo Clark to take care of and to be the guardian of the orb, because it is a significant thing that you need to have. You don't want this just lying around for anybody to stumble on. So I thought that was a cool moment that we see this kind of trust between the two of them. And it wasn't really, you look at it, it wasn't a trust like creator to robot, servant. It was a trust of a friend. And you talked about how these robots, they do seem sentient. They do seem to have a personality. And this robot did have a Clark Kent personality to
And in the Silver Age, when he had the robots, a lot of that was due to the fact that he still had to remember, this is before Lois and him were married. So he didn't have as many confidants as he has today that knew Superman and Clark Kent were one and the same. The robots were mostly used to protect his identity, but he also created them for the purpose of having them to communicate with, to throw ideas off of, so he wasn't so lonely in the Fortress of Solitude. So that was what they were there for. They provided a certain sense of companionship when he needed it. So it is interesting to see now, and I do like here that we still find out that his head is still clearing from the fog he kind of created himself. Because he says, I'm beginning to remember I can, Clark. So I do think he's remembered quite a bit, almost all of it, but he's still not 100% there. He's still trying to get his bearings and totally get a handle on what he's done. And
what is what,
And do you think because a lot of times when you do this kind of thing to yourself, do you think he totally got back all of his memories by the end?
By the end, yes.
Okay.
But
By the end.
Yeah. As of this point, no. And we'll see later when he has that great dialogue with his father and mother, where we see, him get the full picture. And that was a cool thing. But I tell you, for me, with Lois and Clark, just the great love story between the two of them. It is something I eat up in the comic books. And for me, one of the great scenes I always had was when after Clark had died, after the whole Doomsday thing, and when he came back and Lois didn't know he was back yet, he shows up at her window, taps on the window, and she's all mad thinking it's some bird or something, and she throws open the shutter and you see the big red S. He swoops her up in this thing, and it's just like that great moment of those two, the great two loves back together again. I love that sequence. This one and this one actually either ranks up with there or even maybe exceeds it because it was a visual presentation, but also the story being told.
Yeah.
You see this initial presentation of Lois sitting there. She's dealing with a nice, sweet old lady as they're picking fruit. You see this great Lois Lane who is not just a
hard-nosed reporter.
Right.
She's also the only one who really knows what's going on here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting because we haven't really learned that she knows the whole story yet, but she really does. So she knows what's going on, what happened, why is this fruit there? Just when they need the fruit, they pick the fruit, it's ready to eat. And just I really just love just seeing his sequence as he's getting to her, as he's coming to her. You see him rushing to her.
She puts her arms out.
Yeah.
She can tell he's there before he's actually there. She feels it on the wind. She's flown with him so many times. She knows the signs. She knows the change. Because you see her head turn back and her knowing that this is coming beforehand and just giving herself into it. It's just, to me, and then that gorgeous sequence of the two of them together. It's just, to me, it was breathtaking. And I'm with you on that. The romance of that story. This is a marriage and a relationship that, to me, I don't care if it goes through turmoil or trouble.
Yeah.
That's very normal in any marriage for that type of thing to happen. But I applaud any author who has worked on these characters since they've been married for keeping the marriage working, keeping the marriage interesting. I don't care if you throw curveballs at it or anything like that. I love the whole bit with Chris Kent, how that became, can we do this? Can we have a kid? Can we make that work? And what would that be like? And how that was an issue. I don't mind any of that stuff. I think that's interesting and unique storytelling. But these are two people, both of them, are two strong characters that I could see working through any situation, no matter how bad things got.
And just
eventually.
The dialogue. I love the one line where he's like, perfection, real perfection. I speed towards, she has her faults, but they only prove to make her perfect.
Yeah.
I love that. Just, you think about it. Yeah, she's not 100% perfect. She does have her little flaws. She has her character traits, but to him, that's what makes her perfect. And I ate that up. And just the other line where he's like, I am home. I am in the only arms strong enough to hold me. And I was just like, yes, this is just a cool, just, I ate it up. But also
the leaves around.
Yeah, the leaves, the apples. There's a little apple right off to the side there that got
her
sucked.
sandal falls off.
Yeah.
Tiny details.
That was just a great moment for me. I loved it. It was something that, I can go back and I can stare at that page for hours, just, enjoying the artwork of it, just appreciating it.
Going back to Clark. Talk about a foreboding sequence right there.
Poor guy there. I do feel bad for him. He
is wearing a red tie.
Yeah, well, I guess there's the red shirt.
He's got the red and blue going.
Yeah, well, hey.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the red tie, more like a red shirt.
Yeah, Star Trek, yeah.
He's expendable.
Yeah, poor guy.
But you're right, he does have the red and blue going like the Superman colors as well.
Now, I do like the fact that Clark did throw down. Robo Clark is still that part of that Clark Kent personality where he's not going to give in. He's not just going to simply lay down and say, okay, I don't have a chance here. He's going to fight and he's going to duke it out. Now, we are kind of skipping over a great sequence, which we got to talk about. That I
love this sequence with Lois and Clark because they have intimate moments, and I loved how it flashed out with them in the shadows, and when we come back, we never saw anything happen on screen with them. It's the aftermath of it. And there's something about that. you have to be tactful because you want to show that these two are a married couple, that there's a passion there between the two of them, and you're leaving that ambiguity as far as what can or can't they do and all that. That doesn't matter. You just know that they've come to some kind of understanding as far as what that is to them. You know,
they call him Superman for a reason.
Okay, well, I was really I was trying to say something sweet here about it because I actually really do like that. I think it's hard for artistic teams and writers to do anything like this with this relationship and make it work. And I thought they did a really nice job of keeping it sexy but not going too far.
Yeah,
because there's a very fine line with these two characters, again, as far as how far you can go with this, and you don't want to cheapen anything between the two of them, yet you want to make them feel that you want a humanity to that relationship.
You don't want to hear bounce chicka wow wow when you read the stuff, but you do want to hear the that lovely, that loving kind of that.
I don't want to hear either of those things.
one of the things I think of with this is what they did on Smallville with like the bed breaking and everything. Could not stand that. I'm like, I don't need to know that.
See, I kind of chuckled with that. That actually.
I mean, at first it's kind of like. At first, I was kind of like, I had a little laugh. But the more I think about it, it's like, no.
Let me tell you why that worked a little bit more for me in Smallville. And you can totally disagree with me. So it's why that worked for me in Smallville was because of the age of Clark and the fact that we're still dealing with him getting used to his powers. So that kind of fit the whole awkward Clark, where here we're dealing with an adult Superman.
Right.
At this point in time, I don't want to see that. I'm with you. I don't want to see that kind of stuff here.
Yeah.
But I think it worked a little bit better for me. And you can, and please feel free to totally disagree with me on that. I think there's a distinction in age that makes it totally inappropriate here.
Yeah.
This is, I see this as a physical representation of love, of true love, whereas that was a little bit more of a lust type thing. That's one of the things that I love. She's sitting there. She's got the red cape draped over her. In the background, you kind of see some green and pink butterfly type creatures fluttering around. The next panel, when they do that beautiful close up of her face, she's got that, it's not a lust look on her face. It's a love look. It's that, someone who is with their soulmate, someone who is with the one who loves them as much as they love, he loves her as much as she loves him.
They've also been away from each other for a year.
Yeah. So you got to make up. Yeah. There is a little bit of that, but I do like just seeing this expression of the love. It's not just the verbal, it's now we have the physical expression, but they don't go over the line. They don't cross the edge. It's not anything that you wouldn't want. You wouldn't want to, oh my God, I can't believe that's in Superman. Cover your eyes, little Johnny. No, it's still a great story and still, I would say acceptable for ages, but that's just my interpretation of what's acceptable. Parents and or y'all teachers may have different ideas. I don't know.
I don't know if it's okay for little Johnny.
Depends on how little Johnny is.
Teenage Johnny, I'm okay.
Teenage Johnny, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, that's irrelevant here. But one of the things I really like though is we see, this is his moment to regroup. He's reconnecting with his soulmate, with his heart, and all that. And that part really works for me here because we see him gathering information now from his most important confidant, the one who actually understands everything that's going on here. Which I'm still wondering at this point how much of this he knows that she knows at this point. I'm assuming that he's got a pretty good idea that she knows everything.
I think he's starting to piece together that she knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he knows exactly the whole story yet.
Now, I loved the bit where she says, don't apologize for any of this, because as we learn more about the story, we see why she feels that way. And I agree with her, because he's a scientist here. He conducted an experiment. He didn't expect it to go this way. We'll have to talk about some of the mistakes that were made and, how an accident happened, that a horrible accident happened that caused this to go horribly wrong. But I do like the scientific aspect of Superman. And I do like that. I don't know if you guys feel the same as I do. I don't need Superman to be perfect. I need Superman to keep trying to be perfect. There's a huge distinction between those two for me. Like, I want Superman to, when he makes a mistake, he doesn't get, downtrodden. He keeps looking at it for a different way. He talks to his confidants and keeps trying to find a way to reinvigorate himself, to regroup, and to do better. And I think that's something where Superman in the DC universe, he's an important character for that because he's the kind of hero that inspires other heroes by leading by those type of actions. And we talked about this, Jim, with I don't want to go back to the whole reluctant leader thing, but there is an element of that when we talked about the distinction between a military leader and
inspirational leader.
Yeah. And I do think with him, I agree with. I've always agreed with you, especially when we kind of made that distinction, that I don't think Superman wants to be any kind of military leader by any stretch. We see it in World of New Krypton, and he does it quite well in World of New Krypton because that's his disguise,
right.
And he needs to portray that there. And he does do it well because he can be a great leader. But in this particular scenario, with that symbolism of him as an inspirational leader, I do think that's a strength of his, where he inspires because he keeps trying, and he shows heroes that you don't give up and you don't compromise, and you. Well,
and he just to basically put the rest of the whole reluctant leader thing, because it's and
I really
yeah.
We last time we did this, and I don't want to keep saying last time we did this, but when we did do this recording previously, we had a discussion about this, and it is something that I thought was an important point of all this.
And we are in sync on what we're talking about. How, when because for me, especially back then, when I was thinking leader, I was thinking military leader, not inspirational leader. But here's the strength of an inspirational leader is they are people who are just doing what they think is right, but not, doing what they think is right so they could lead people. Like Dr. King, he did what he thought was right, but he didn't do it to say, I'm going to change the world. Look at me, what a great man I am. No, he did what he thought was right, and he wanted others to follow him. But he didn't want to. If you would have asked Dr. King, are you a leader? Do you want to change the world? Do you want to do this? He wouldn't have wanted to. He just wants the right, what is right to happen. But
he was a leader because of that. Because he was trying to inspire change. He was trying to be an agent of change. So he was a leader, very much so.
Yeah,
so is Superman for that reason.
But it's a different style of what they want out of their leadership.
Right.
It's
leadership by example.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, we're all on the same page.
Right.
Yes.
No, but the way you were wording it.
Yeah, wording.
And the distinction was no. I mean, you were saying that he wasn't a leader. He didn't want to be. And I'm like, no. Yes, he did want to be. He didn't want to be a leader, like in the sense of giving orders.
Right.
But he was laying down. But I got to correct myself on that. He was laying down the law, though. And I do think your inspirational speakers, they are trying to be leaders and agents of change, whether you agree with them or not. There's a whole bunch of them out there today, for example, some of which you're going to think are crazy, some of them you think are great. And I mean, that's going to be subjective from person to person, but they are trying to be inspirational leaders. They are trying to be agents of change that way. Superman does look at the Superman symbol and the symbolism of Superman. I do think there are times, and we see it with him, like when we see Superman with Father Leone, that is, he starts to let his guard down and we see Clark. But I do think there's times where we see just Superman. And I think there is a distinction between like the fumbling Clark Kent and the Clark Kent that we see. We see him on the farm with his family. That's the real man. That's Clark Kent. We see him with Lois in these sequences. That's the real Clark Kent. We see him with Robo Clark. That's the real Clark Kent. Leone. There are moments, but there are times, I think, when we see him with in that other country, when he's interacting with the leaders, that we are seeing the Superman person.
That is Superman.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think there's a line and a distinction there. We don't always see him with the Justice League letting his guard down to be Clark. But when we see those moments when he goes off with Diana and with Bruce, and they're in their secret little room.
They're in the Star Chamber.
Right.
Yes.
Private, like the Blue Beetle issue that Freddie Williams drew, that where Superman was in there for a guest shot. It was a great example in that issue. He started to let his guard down with Blue Beetle, and Blue Beetle got to have a Clark conversation with him.
Yeah.
And I think there are distinctions of those moments. Bruce has that same quality. We'll see him with Alfred that way. I mean, it's a very different – his other personalities are in a very different level and a very different direction than Clark. But I do think that is something that's interesting about this character, that Clark does have those other personas as well. But I think the reason that he has a Superman persona is because during those moments he's trying to inspire a certain kind of code of conduct, a certain kind of action from people to be something more.
Right. He wants the best out of everybody. He wants the people to do what is right, not what is his will.
And also, like, you'll see when he's with firemen, policemen, and military even, when we see him interact with those people, he's trying to he empower them in their roles.
Right. That is what how an inspirational leader handles it. Not, okay.
And we're totally in sync. Yeah. I agree with you. The military thing, we're 110% on. Of course, my understanding of what a military leader is nil, because I have no background there. But it is funny how we do have a distinction as far as...
Because that's how I look at leadership structure.
It is funny in this story, though, as we've talked about it, though, we did realize the distinction, though, as far as how much more of the scientific Superman I see in him.
Yeah, see,
because I grew up with him. And you guys don't get that on that same level, which I totally understand. It's where our backgrounds are different.
It's something that I'm enjoying out of this, getting out of this story, seeing this other side of Clark. And, you figure his family is the Science Guild. So there should be a little bit of that science knowledge. And he did when he came down from Krypton. And the rocket ship was Kryptonian, the knowledge base for him. And there's been multiple issues where they've talked about him going back to the fortress and getting knowledge from Krypton. So I like seeing that there is that scientist in him. It kind of adds to why his friendship with Bruce is so much, because Bruce is the great detective. Right. Well, now we see the science side of it. And then when you look at Bruce, he's got the fear, intimidation, and the great detective going on for him. You got Clark, he's got the science and the and the hope thing. Then you got Diana. She's the warrior, which is kind of like Bruce's intimidation factor, but she's also got the inspiration, which is the kind of like Superman. You see each of them have similar traits with all members of the Trinity, and it's kind of an understanding why these three are the three.
Even has multiple personalities based on their situations. She's a character that's very complex. So talk about a supporting character that's been so well developed over the years in storytelling. She's a great character to just explore. I think the current portrayal of her in Smallville has been fabulous, especially as she's developed over the seasons, because she went from being a very unlikable character to being a character who I think we understand and get more now.
Yeah, she's definitely, we're seeing the signs of the Lois, the reporter who gets herself in trouble, who can sometimes get out, sometimes needs a save. You see the combination of the scared girl. There is a definite scared girl who's had a lot of issues in her life, especially she's got a lot of daddy issues, with General Lane not being father of the year for her. And it's affected who she is and how she deals with these circumstances. But we do see that, especially in this, we see that great woman that she becomes, who is very, maternal, is very loving, is very caring. But within a couple issues, we're going to see her pick up the warrior stick and go, okay, I got to throw down.
Yeah. She's an army brat, though, so it's okay.
Yeah, she knows how to fight.
I'm sorry.
Although in this, I don't know if that was part of the continuity or not at the time. Was it?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was definitely a part of because General Lane had already been a part of the storytelling before this. So yeah, that's definitely a part of it.
Because I know that we were talking earlier about how some of the continuity has changed. So
some of the, I think things like I would say more than anything else, Zod would be probably a huge change because of how he's been reworked for what we're reading now.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd say that would be a major change. I don't think the characterizations of Clark and Lois, Lois especially, I don't think her characterization is different on pretty much any level. She's pretty much so standard Lois Lane here. I'm sorry for Clark. I wanted to ask you guys about this because this is the part I got to admit, even in my multiple read-throughs, the last read-through I did through this, it was always a part that I was wondering, I'm like, what is he talking about when he's apologizing to her for him? Because did he, I guess I wondered at this point, did he know that she knows everything? Did he know that she knew that, like, this Clark robot wasn't him, or that would be hard for her? Or did he know that something was going to befall Clark? Or, how tough this has been on Clark? I don't know even. What does he know at this point in time? What did you guys take that to mean, though? What was he apologizing for there?
I took it that, apologize, because she, putting in he knew he put in Clark. He knew she knew that wasn't really him.
Right.
And it just, he knew now probably what type of emotional strain that would put on her seeing Clark, but not have it be the real Clark. And
the personality's probably close.
especially, we see it's a sentient life. It is Clark's personality. It is that same great guy that she knows and she's in love with, but it's not him. And that would be, a tough thing for her. And he even said earlier when Clark and Superman were talking that he made her uncomfortable and he left her alone. That's a robot, recognizing emotional response in a human saying, hey, I don't want to hurt her anymore. I'm going to go away. So that is huge type of dealings.
I would have trouble being around Robo-Wife.
Yeah.
If it was a clone of my wife or something like that, that would be really difficult because you would know it's not that person. Or even a clone. Let's talk about another, we talk about the multiverse, how there are a lot of times on the DC universe. In the multiverse, there's different variations of the same person. It would be hard to be around a variation of the same person.
Now, with that, multiverse is different than robot for me. Because with multiverse, if the other your variation, if your Earth wasn't around anymore, if something had happened to her and you get the new version, the other universe version of her, I don't think I would have as much problem being around.
That wouldn't creep you out to no end?
Not as I
didn't creep Ray Palmer out.
Yeah, see, I think I'd be on the same boat as Ray is, where I would look for that. And, then again, I am speaking from a different plane as you are.
Except I got to say something, though. That whole situation in Countdown that we're talking about, that was very Stepford Wives to me. It's almost too perfect. That would creep me out, too, to be on a different Earth where all the homes are just so clean and everything was so nice. I honestly would have trouble sleeping in that house. I'd be afraid that somebody was going to knife me, coming from our world.
Yeah. See, this is one we're going to look at completely different because you have Saint Mariah. I don't have that. I don't have, someone who is just right for me. So for me, I can only guesstimate based on some of my past relationships. And we've talked about, some of my past ones aren't the most healthy things in the world. So if I'm going to another universe and dealing with some of my exes that way, hey, it could be actually kind of cool. So, with you, it is a different thing where now Robo would be completely different. I would not want a Robo version, especially if it was somebody I truly and deeply cared about.
Mandy, I want to throw it to you, though. What were your thoughts on Robo Clark and that whole situation? What did he mean?
What did he mean when he said, I'm sorry for Clark?
Yeah.
I think at that point, he recognized that he was the real Clark. I think he recognized that he was responsible for Robo Clark being there. And he had to have recognized that that was going to be rough on her. And yeah, I pretty much agree with Jim as far as, he recognizes that had to be tough on her. So he's apologizing for putting her through that kind of emotional distress.
Is there a double meaning? Is there a double meaning there, though? Is he also, I guess I'm wondering now, I'm looking at Clark sitting there in solace and alone. Is he also, because I'm taking, this Clark looks very sentient to me. Is Clark having emotional difficulty, Robo Clark? How sentient is he?
Is real Clark, you mean that is real Clark
really sorry for
Like he feels
Clark.
Sorry for.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see that too.
That actually, because you think about it, he would know that Clark would have these feelings towards her and saying, hey, oh man, I messed up with that one. I should have probably
he could have gleaned that from the moment that Robo Clark told him that, he went away because he made Lois feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And the scientist side of him has to know, exactly what Robo Clark is capable of anyways.
And what he might be feeling.
Right.
You know what's interesting here, and this is the first time I'm noticing this, I'm looking at the Fortress of Solitude for Robo Clark. It's very reminiscent of the new Fortress of Solitude that Clark creates later.
Mm.
Take a look at what he's got over here.
Yeah, that is.
So I
didn't notice
if he didn't, maybe gain some inspiration from what Robo Clark built for himself there and how maybe...
Or you think about the fact that the new fortress is based on life, not abandonment of life.
Mm-hmm.
How the old fortress is, and that's this new world. This world is that abundance of life. It's not the anarchy. This is the rainforest, but it's the rainforest without the nasty human influence that destroyed most of it. This is a clean, pure rainforest, if you will.
I'm looking at this Equus bit now, where we see this thump, 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 click, click, click. All it's missing is land shark. From Saturday Night Live. I don't know if you guys ever saw that.
Oh, yeah.
Skit, the old Chevy Chase skit, land shark.
Andygram.
Yeah, then they open up the door.
Yeah.
They get eaten by land shark. Equus is the DC Universe land shark. I'm sure it's on YouTube. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look up land shark.
Yeah, look up
Chevy
land shark.
Chase.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that.
Wow. All these times we've talked
If
about.
this was a video podcast, you would see me shaking my head in disbelief right now.
Yeah.
Land shark.
Or at least you're not pulling out Muppets.
No. Well, we'd probably do that.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah, as I said before, I like seeing, Robo Clark fight back a little bit.
I do too.
He was outgunned and outmatched, and he had no chance. But it was good to see that if he does have that Clark Kent personality, he would not quit. And this was another really, I gotta confess, a stupid moment on my part. I didn't see who the quote unquote general was, even with that great line that should have had me just cheering. Because Equus is getting ready to completely destroy Clark. It's like, oh no. He belongs to the one who is mine, the one who will kneel before me. And that line should have told me completely that it was Zod, and it didn't. And I still, to this day, kick myself in the head, just smack myself in the head, do a big old, no, kind of thing every time I read that going, why didn't I see it? Because I did not see it at that point in time.
Yes, what were you thinking, Jim?
I know, I was a fool.
That was one, I got to admit, because when I read the monthly issues of this was obviously a cliffhanger for me right here. I got to admit, I did see that then. Just because, kneel before Zod, it's one of the most iconic Superman lines. But I could totally see, it depends on what your focus was on this issue. Because if your focus was, when you were reading it, on what was going on to poor Clark.
Yeah, see, I was looking at that, and I was seeing the blood coming out of his mouth, and I was thinking, I was still had in my head that this wasn't a robot, that this was actually Clark Kent getting killed. And I'm like, oh, God, is that how he brings back his humanity? What's going to happen?
When you were initially reading this,
yeah,
you were thinking that this is still
a human. It took me until, later issues that I realized that these were robots.
So the way we read this issue even was completely different first time through, because I totally was thinking robot. I was wondering if as a robot, though, depending on how sentient it was, whether or not he felt any pain, because we don't see any screaming or anything as he's going through this.
We see blood.
We see blood, but we don't see any reaction in the sense
like
that,
when Equus pops out his eyes, there's no
yeah, I would be saying something.
Yeah, there'd definitely be an ouchie there.
Yeah, I'd be saying a whole bunch of colorful things, but yeah, that's an interesting issue.
Can Batman escape? One hint: the worst is yet to come.
Let's go to
issue 213, man. Yeah, that cover. That has the general General Zod, but it's General in that armor, and his Equus holding him down like he's the war dog, and I really dig that because I was looking at that going, yeah, he does have a dog-like quality to him that I really didn't notice it in the past, but you look at how he was drawn in the past issues and how he's drawn here, and it's the same drawing, but it just, you change his stance, you put him down on all fours, you change his positioning, put the collar around his neck. He definitely has that dog-like quality.
The flaws Orr refers to with him, too, I think fit that.
Yeah, definitely. The high hostile range and just and how he's overtly, irrational. He's got the roid rage going, big time.
Mandy, I want to ask you this first. What do you think about Zod in this? We see a different interpretation of Zod. I mean, when he takes the helmet off, it looks a little bit more traditional Zod, but what did you think of that overall, that whole different look to Zod?
I think the first time, maybe even the first couple times that I read this, it took me a while to believe that was Zod. It's like, yeah, they say it's Zod, but it's not really the way that I envisioned him or that I had seen him before. So it really, I'm like, I don't know. It's just, it was different for me, and it took a while to get used to seeing him drawn that way. When I think of Zod, of course, I think of Terrence Stamp in Superman 2.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard
We all
not
do,
to.
I think.
Yeah, it's hard not to, because, I mean, he did such an amazing job. And, you know, I think of the way that Pete Woods is drawing him in World of New Krypton right now. And I see him like that. He's much more of a, you don't see him so much as a warrior, but more of this military mastermind.
Yeah. Jim, what about you? What was your...
Well, very similar.
Oh, sorry, man. Did I cut you
That's
off
okay.
there?
No, I was done.
Yeah. Very similar, where it did take me, when I first initially saw, that it was Zod, I was like, yes, it's Zod! And I was cheering and hooping and hollering, and then when you see him without the helmet, I'm like, is this my Zod? Wait a minute. But you see this Zod has gone through difference. He's a little bit crazier. He's a little bit beyond what was General Zod. And that was the thing that really pulled me into liking this version of Zod, was because we see how he gets there and why he's of the state of mind. It's not just I hate Jor-El and I'm going to kill the son of Jor-El. No, he hates Kal-El in this one. There are definite reasons why he really hated Superman for what Superman did. And that was the thing that really pulled me into this Zod. It was, understanding where he comes from, why he looks different. There's an explanation why he looks a little bit older than what we're seeing in World of New Krypton or what we saw in Superman 2. This is, a different person, a different, not even just an interpretation. This is a person who's been through different experiences. So that was something I really ate into, as I still saw the stuff I love about Zod in this guy. And I saw the changes, why the changes were present. It wasn't just a reimagining of Zod just to do it. There was explanation behind the differences.
I had a lot more difficulty with him initially as well. I think my experiences kind of mirrored Mandy's, and it sounds like yours too a little bit as well. But I was like, really? That was my initial take on it. And then I got to agree, after multiple read-throughs, now that I'm very used to this being the presentation of him in this story, and like you said, I think when you get more into the psychological trauma of what this guy's gone through, I buy into it a lot more as well. You're right. It definitely fits the story. I think it goes back to my original argument that I think this would have made a great mini-series.
Yeah, definitely.
It was clear this was a Superman story told out of continuity and just kind of its own thing. Although I do like the elements of this that did play into continuity afterwards. Like the new fortress and things like that writers ended up pulling in. So there were elements of this that I really thought played well into continuity, because I liked the idea that Superman would experiment with a new fortress and have that new base.
It's something I would have, I didn't really read this as the monthly series, so I can't, for me, I only read this in this format. So I only saw this as a limited series, even though it is really, part of the monthly and it is continuity. So I think that's our big difference between how we appreciate and how we learned and how we, our experience with this story. That's why I definitely think, Mandy and I look at this completely different than you did. Now, you're more of a negative Nelly and we're more positive about it.
Yes.
Now, the issue opening up with, once again, my favorite SOB, or I love this guy and I hate this guy at the same time. He is so CIA, black operations, that smarmy little son of a son that you really want to see get thumped in the end. But I like his preparation. He doesn't know everything, but he's got the intel, and that's part of the knowledge is power. He's going to do research on people. He's going to know how to stop somebody.
This turned into a Schoolhouse Rocks thing.
Knowledge is power. Now you know, and that's
because knowledge is power.
Yep. Hey. I can't remember any of the other Schoolhouse Rocks other
Yes,
than
I'm a Bill.
Conjunction Junction. What's
Yes.
your function? Okay, I'll stop.
Yeah, it's bad enough I play it for my students.
Really? Outstanding.
Yes, I do.
I actually have that, getting on a sidetrack. I do have that DVD of all these Schoolhouse
I do
Rocks.
too, yeah.
Yeah,
So do I.
I saw it in the store. I had to buy it because I'm like, that's my childhood. Oh, cool. I remember this stuff.
You don't remember Yes, I'm a Bill?
Yes, I remember. Yes, I'm a Bill.
Um,
You said
Yes,
Conjunction
I'm
Junction
just
was the only one
a
you could
Bill.
remember, so I didn't
Well,
know.
at the time,
Apple Hill, yeah.
I remember this. I'm getting it. It's
Sorry.
slowly coming back, you know?
Rufus Xavier Sarsaparilla.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're really on a tangent here. I'm sorry. And I took this here. I apologize.
Okay, getting back to
It's all your fault.
It is. It is.
He's once again in the Middle Eastern country, and he's coming face to face with another really cool character, the Halcyon. And just
I love the story of Samson and Delilah. So just thinking that she's Delilah and that she has that, you know what it is? It goes back to what I like about the Hawks with the reincarnation bit. I like that she's somebody different throughout history. That
Right.
Throughout time, she has taken on different personas. Did either of you guys read the JLA 80-page Giant?
No, I did not.
Did you read that?
no.
All right.
I have it though.
There's a very cool story in there. What happens is each of the heroes is sent back through time, and there's a bit where Red Arrow meets somebody that reminds him of Kendra, and it actually is a previous incarnation of Shira Hall.
Oh, okay, got to get that now. Okay.
Best of times. So, if for anybody who read that, if you didn't read the Hawk series, you might not be aware that that's who that character is. But he makes reference to saying that she reminds me of Kendra, and it's because
There's a good reason for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's other bits like that throughout the story where they pull from different eras of the DC mythos because the characters are sent throughout time. It was an interesting story because the issue was broken up into many little tales by different creative teams.
Okay.
So and they were paired up in different eras. So you got to see like Vixen and Green Lantern, John Stewart. You got to see each of these eras. You got to see people. It was Hal Jordan and Red Arrow that were trapped in the Old West. So you got to see the ring slinger fight the gunslingers. It was cool.
Yeah, I know I have that. I just don't remember reading it.
Yeah. Well, you'd remember it. I mean, it was.
When did it come out?
A couple weeks ago.
Okay.
So it was a good story. I read it on the way to the Mid-Ohio-Con.
Okay.
My wife drove, which was very nice because I got to do a little reading along the way. She gets to control the radio. I got to read a couple comics. So.
All right, that works. Now, but yeah, seeing just Orr basically take her down though with magic, even though he's not a magician, he doesn't even believe in magic, but he knows her beliefs. He knows what will weaken her. He knows what will stop her, and that was something I really liked because we know the company, we know the agency, all that they deal with. All aspects, science, occult, this human body, just the various medical, scientific, technological, and even the mystical. And it was a neat way just to show more of this
scientifical.
Yes.
Well, it wouldn't be a recording without Jim making up a word.
Come on, give me a break here, okay?
I guess we're done now. Jim made up his word.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. I'm going.
I love when you make up new words.
But the cool thing about this guy, though, is he does that huge explosion, probably kills innocent people, but it's all a diversion to get her. Mm-hmm. And I like seeing that. Once again, he's a smarmy SOB, and I shouldn't like this guy, but that stuff fits for him. It's a good way. It's a good usage of the character. And even just, he's not, he is the all seriousness, but we've seen him go back and forth with the witty banter with her in the past incarnations between the two of them. So for him to end their sequence, she's completely confined because of the two dogs he has. So he has some dogs go up and lick her feet so she'll giggle while he's telling him her plan. I
love that he also knows that she believes in this. Yes. That's all that's necessary here. These are like totems to her. Yep. They're like, these symbols that, he knows that this is like her garlic if she's a vampire. And I like that aspect of this whole thing, that it doesn't matter whether or not he believes it. Yeah. It matters that she does.
She does. And that's
he knows
the key.
That'll have an effect on her.
Yeah. We see Superman back in Metropia, and Metropia
I love
reunion.
Jor-El's costume design here.
Yeah.
Love it.
That looks really, really cool.
Yeah. It's straight from Birthright, too.
Yeah. When I'm Superman's little buddy on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's
Is that what
the
you're going to
outfit
wear?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I figured it'd be with something with wings.
Well, no, because I'm not going to be. If I get to hang out with Hawkman, I'll do that.
Well, you should.
That'll
wear the
be
wings
Tuesday,
anyway.
Thursday, Saturday.
Oh, okay. He's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah.
And Sunday's your day of rest.
Sunday's a day of rest.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the day you spend with the wife.
Yeah, and I'll TiVo Smallville and stuff like that.
Oh,
And
okay.
catch that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got it all planned. You just
I do.
You just need
gotta
to
work.
somehow figure out a way to get into this comic book universe.
That's
you know,
right.
and so you could do this.
Where I'm not dead.
Right.
But I mean, the Jor-El costume design. All kidding aside, that's very cool.
Yeah. Now the thing I liked about this was we got to see, Jor-El and Lara get that thrill out of Clark learning, getting the final pieces together. Because as they're sitting there explaining to it, Laura's like, "Oh yeah, here he comes." He's starting to get it, and it's that whole mom type mindset. You want your kid to learn, you want your kid to grow, and it's like, "Oh yeah, come on, put it together. You can do this. Let's see what you can think." And it's that kind of that proud parent type mindset that they're seeing their kid figure everything out. I kind of like that.
I like that he doesn't know what to say.
Right.
Like, you see that it's awkward for him. Like, he made them too well, and he doesn't know how to deal with that. I would be creeped out by that. Imagine my mom coming up and grabbing my robot mom coming up and grabbing my face. It'd be very weird.
Yeah.
That would go back to the multiverse thing. It would be weird to have my mom from another universe
See,
have the same reaction.
I still hold on to the fact that if it was a multiverse mom, I would be okay with that. But robot mom, I would be.
You know what, though? Dude, I know you live with your mom.
Right.
You live with your mom and your dad. And you have such a good relationship with them. You travel with them. You do a lot. I mean, you guys genuinely enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
I'm complimenting you 100% on this. I mean, I think you have a great relationship with your family. I can't see you knowing that it's not your mom.
But here's the thing. I would treat it as if it wasn't my mom. But I wouldn't be freaked out or weirded out by it.
That's what I mean, though. There would be a distinction.
I wouldn't treat multiverse mom like how I treat my mom.
Okay.
But there would still be, it would be kind of neat to see this other multiverse mom. But they wouldn't be my
I'd be
mom.
intrigued to see that too.
Yeah, when I'm saying
what if multiverse? See, that's what I'm saying though. He's having an awkward moment.
Yeah.
Multiverse mom walks up and sees you thinking you're multiverse Jim. That's not going to be awkward for you.
That would be. But
yes.
But here's the thing: if multiverse mom shows up, knows I am not her Jim, and we would have a different reaction. That'd be cool.
Now, if she makes your mom's bread.
Yeah, then hey, she's a keeper.
I'm cool with multiverse mom too. I mean, I got to say that she got to make your mom's bread though.
Right.
I've got certain rules.
Okay, but the robot mom, that would creep me out. I would have issues with. I would have the same reaction that Clark is having. Because this isn't the mom. This is the robot. How do I deal with it? Do I treat this like a machine? Do I treat this like a servant? Do I treat this like a thing? But it's a sentient. It has like these life.
I'd hang with Robo version of your mom if she makes your bread.
Oh, okay. For those of you, let me just fill everyone. My mom makes the world's greatest Easter bread.
She does,
and it's Mom is a good cook, but she is an amazing baker, and her bread is just this amazing thing. And I share it with Sean and Mariah. I share it with a lot with people at some people at work. The guy I do the carpool with now. I give him a loaf, and he's just like he'll sometimes.
That smells like candy.
Yeah, it's you sit down and you eat. You're thinking bread? What the? It's just bread. Like no, it's
not.
It's this sweet bread that just tastes absolutely amazing.
Bread's not the right word.
You sit there and eat for it. Oh yeah.
Heaven.
Yeah, that's a good word.
It's a little slice of heaven.
It is.
Yeah.
Because you just pick that thing off and it's like popping candy. Yeah. It's awesome.
We sit there, we break it off, we eat it. It's actually I like it with sauce. Dip it within some marinara. Oh, that's awesome. But let's get back to the comic.
Anyways.
So Robo, your mom's a thumbs up if she makes
the bread. Yeah. If she makes the bread, they're okay.
All right.
But though it is cool to see.
Let's get back to the comic.
Let's get back to the comic. As I said, I would have that same reaction that Clark is having, where he would have that uncomfortableness. But I do like seeing this emotional response, and when Clark and Jor-El kind of have that father-son talk, that was just it. It was a cool moment that I like seeing, bringing that into this, bringing the whole story together, kind of like the final piece of the stone, coming together from Jor-El to Clark. It's that father-son type moment, and it's
Clark facing his own shame.
Yeah, but it's naturally hit this. The ultimate, source of this idea did come from his father. He wanted to take the idea his father did and improve on it. So having it be a dialogue with his father is a great way to do it. But you still have Lois there in the background. Lois is there as the support factor, as she should be. This is, his soulmate. This is his love.
Dad wanted to do the same thing that Clark was trying to do.
Right.
Dad did want to try and save everybody. It's just that the council went against him.
Right.
They thought he was crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean that's pretty consistent with all the versions of it. They either banned him from doing it, or because they didn't want him to cause unrest, or they thought he was blowing smoke, or whatever reason. It was politics that was driving it, and that got in the way of him being able to accomplish his goal. And Clark was looking for a way around that to actually accomplish what Dad really tried to do.
And when we finally do see the question, if you will, that was the source of it. I loved that part.
And that's the line. And that's the line that made me read it.
Yeah. And actually, it's funny because you think about that is just a really cool bit. How, it's that one line, out there, that would pull you in to see an action, to seek out and, read this.
Now, you said the SIG file was, would you build a rocket ship to save our child?
Well, it's actually the whole thing. What if what happened to Krypton happened to Earth? Would you build a rocket ship to save our child?
Okay. Now, what did you think? It was interesting because I thought this was totally intriguing. What did you think, seeing as you hadn't read the story yet, what did you think was going to be the premise of the story, or what did you think was going to happen there?
I didn't expect it to be the basis for the whole, like, why all of this came about. I thought, maybe, in the heat of the moment, she asked this question, but I did not at all expect it to be, hey, she says this and that's what gets him thinking, and that's why we get into this whole mess in the first place. I did not expect the presentation of it.
I had to ask myself when I was reading this segment, especially in my later read-throughs, did I think he was right in doing this? And I think that becomes an intriguing question. What advice would, if you had a chance to sit down and say, hey, chum, did you do the right thing or not? I would support him on this, I think, ultimately.
Yeah.
I really thinking about it. Mm-hmm. It went wrong. It went horribly wrong. But to do it over again, I don't know if I could stop him in a million years, because he's right to try this.
And he really did have the best intentions in doing it.
Yeah, and I'd
also argue to be right to perfect it, to try and perfect it still. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, this is a good safety net. This is something that, could actually save Earth, could save other planets.
It could. We talk about
it's like the modern day bomb shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about what we're doing to our planet today and how we're destroying it and all that. And really, realistically, he's provided an opportunity. What do we do for future generations? Not us, 3, 4 generations, 5 generations down the line, whatever. Mm-hmm. They're going to need, unless something drastically changes, this planet is going to, if it keeps heading on the path that it is, it's, not going to be very livable.
Yes, and that's the thing that always gets me when people say, oh, we're killing the planet. We're not killing the planet. We're just making it inhabitable for human life. The planet will still be here. There will be some form of life on the planet. It just won't be human beings. It'll probably be something like the cockroach or the insect, or something that doesn't need an abundance of oxygen that we need, or that could survive, living more subterranean because it can't go on the surface because the ozone layer is destroyed. We're just making the planet so that we couldn't live on it. And I started thinking just about how the birth of this whole idea, coming from that one statement, they're laying in bed. It's that tender moment. Once again, we see a great tender moment between the two of them, and you get thinking on that whole process. You start thinking about family, and just his sole, motivation and source of this was out of love. And that's something, if I was Superman's buddy and he said, hey, I got this idea, I would be like, dude, that's a great idea. Let's get working on this thing. I would even be one of the volunteers to say, hey, when he had it built, like, send me through. I'll make sure it's livable for human life. I would volunteer to do something like that.
What would you do with the cockroaches? Would you leave them or would you bring them along?
Oh, I definitely leave the cockroaches. I got a thing about bugs. Bugs and arachnids and all those type of insect realm. They
creepy
really
crawlies.
Yes, I
we
do
need them to a certain extent, though, as far as our
do we really
ecosystem, circle of life, all that nonsense.
Do we really? If we don't bring over the flies and we don't bring over the mosquitoes, do we really need the cockroaches and spiders and stuff like that?
Well, insects are responsible for all kinds of different things.
Like
for
what?
Our resources.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think we could do without them.
What about bees? Would you bring bees over?
Definitely would bring over bees. That's a completely different entity. I like bees. Bees are cool.
Do you really?
Yeah, bees are cool, man. Black and yellow.
So you just don't like the
fellow.
You just don't want the creepy crawlies because you just don't like them. But bees are okay.
Bees are okay. Hey, bees serve a purpose. They're pollination and all that type of stuff.
Sensei of the Whatnot says hug a bee.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Beekeeper of the Whatnot.
I can imagine we're going to get some stuff on that one.
Hey, Jim, I'm going to make a really quick suggestion to you.
Yeah.
Read a short story by Jack Finney called The Sound of Thunder, and you'll change your mind.
Okay. And
okay.
Change your mind on bees?
No, on the creepy crawlies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
They actually discuss that.
Oh, okay.
That's
Sound of Thunder. Okay.
Sound of Thunder, Jack Finney.
That could be a convention bedtime story.
Oh, God. Oh, Lord. And here's the thing. It'll be a year, 2 years from now, and Sean will still remember that. And he'll bring it up out of nowhere. I'll be like, what? What are you talking about? Middle of the night, he'll wake up. Jim. You read Sound of Thunder?
Jack Finney is the same guy who wrote Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
So, yeah.
How long's the book?
No, this is just a short story.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
Short story. That's good for me. Short better.
It's probably about 10 or 12 pages.
Perfect.
Yeah. Perfect for your attention span.
2 to 3 in the morning. That'll be a perfect thing for you to read.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Now, one of the cool moments, of course, is as Clark is learning everything and he's explaining what happened, and you're seeing just the guilt that he is feeling over what he did. Lois is there by his side, and I love seeing her support him and say, hey, you did what you thought was right. This isn't, this isn't a bad thing that you did. It turned out wrong, but it's still, what you did with only like the noblest of intention.
And he isn't about leaving things this way. That's important to me. Like with Clark, it's always, he doesn't get, like, because a lot of people could delve into, and I think this is where Superman stories are inspirational as well. Like, this could very well turn into a very dark period where he screwed up so bad that he distances himself from everybody and doesn't do anything about it. He always does something about it. He eventually finds his way into, like, coming up with a solution, trying to correct it. Even if it's not the perfect fix, he tries to fix a mistake that he made, like this. And that's what I like about him, too, is that he takes responsibility and ownership. Oftentimes where it's hard to do, and that's where Superman stories are very inspirational, because we as people have a very tough time doing this. In all cases, not taking responsibility as far as taking responsibility to the level where we will actually go and do something about it. And that's cool in this.
Oh, definitely. Now, as this is going on, we do get a little bit more of Equus and the General, and just another scene that had me just kicking myself because I didn't see it was Zod. Because we see Equus just getting the bad guys ready, getting them pumped for the fight, and the General just steps in and takes control again. There's only one leader of this army, and it is him. And I love how he pulls the reins back on Equus. It's like, this day belongs to me and my hate. You will have your revenge, my puppy, but I hate his everything. His essence, his flesh, his blood. And it's one of those things, again, we go from these great tender moments of Lois and Clark, where Clark's showing his vulnerability and Lois is there, and you go from that to just this rage and hatred. And I was just like, oh my God, this is how a story should be told. This is the flow through.
Roller coaster ride.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have talked a lot about the Jim Lee
Do I have
art.
to stop teasing you?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
We have talked about the Jim Lee art, and these are the sequences. As I said, you get these great just anger, violence sequences in Equus. Then you go flow on. You see Clark contemplating what's going on. He's got that, standing over the balcony, the cape long and flowing, and just some of the, kind of like a classic, dun da da kind of Superman moments where you're thinking, yeah, this is the beginning, the return of our guy. Come the Superman coming back, and I really digged, just seeing these things flow through, especially as it starts leading into the final fight sequence. As we get the bad guys getting ready, they're getting ready to mount. And it's they're getting ready to storm on Metropia, and I like seeing Clark's have that kind of like bad guys. What are they doing here?
Well, one of the funny things that I liked, we haven't really talked about this yet. There is a camp of people who came here through the Vanishings that did not find this paradise the place where they wanted to live. And that was something I found really compelling, because that would be true. One person's idea of paradise is another person's idea of a prison.
Yeah.
They were all brought here, and they were not brought here for the purpose of escaping the end of the world. They were brought here
by
Because
accident.
of a mistake.
right.
Yeah.
So these people are all trapped here all of a sudden. This is like being on an island like in Lost or something like that. And there would be, actually very reminiscent of Lost, in the sense that there would be different camps of people with different ideas, and they would split up and have, not necessarily all follow the same leader. So the plan was a little faulty on that end too, because a guy like Zod would appeal to some.
Yeah, and we see, they don't flat out tell you that Zod did this, but, when this army first starts approaching, Jor-El goes flying off because he is the guardian, and they're like, oh, it's no problem. And you can see everyone's kind of reaction, oh, he'll be able to deal with it. So Equus and Zod have never made an appearance to Jor-El before. They only sent up the people just to kind of, they wanted them to know there's this negative element, but they never really wanted them to see them as an outward threat. So they wouldn't go after them. So that gives the bad guys this chance to build up this army, to prepare for the attack. Zod was waiting for the return of Kal-El. He was waiting for Superman to get there. He knew Superman would make it back, and he knew that's when he would strike. Until then, they just played it cool. Occasionally do some raids here, some raids there, let Jor-El deal with the bad guys. They think everything's safe, everything's harmony. No. Now it's time to unleash. Now it's time to actually show them, what they're facing. And I love that.
Lois's strategy here worked really well too, because she was basically telling him, this is not the time for us to reveal your presence.
Yeah.
It isn't going to do what we want it to do at this point. You need to wait. This is what the robot's for. Let it do its job. And I like that.
Now, the robot is a little bit tougher, but he is not as tough as Superman. And we literally see Equus just cut him in half. And this was actually part of the scenes where I really started realizing that these are robots, and I really started getting into the groove on who everybody is, especially when you see Equus with the robot Clark backpack he's wearing. That kind of really let me into the fact
one
that
of those. That would be a great backpack. It would be a conversation piece.
Oh yeah. Now, it'd be a little heavy, though. That's the only problem. You're not as strong as Equus.
Well, I'd like it to be plush or something.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you'd want the fuzzy, the fluffy.
Yeah.
Clark.
My
Multiple compartments for storage.
My first Robo Clark or something like that. More of the family friendly version.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Where you can stick your iPod headphones in its ear or something like that, and listen to your music.
Now, would he still be ripped in half? And
he's
jagged?
He's not ripped in half yet. He's fine.
Yet.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oops.
Yeah.
Well, that's Jor-El that gets ripped in half.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I don't know. Yeah.
It's just strapped on him. Okay.
Well, to have a ripped in half Jor-El on your back, that'd be just plain silly.
Oh, okay. What am I thinking?
Yeah,
Wow.
come on. Robo Clark, on the other hand, that looks pretty good.
That's like carrying around half a C-3PO on your back.
Well, now that would be cool.
See, it's a backpack I actually wouldn't mind having, the C-3PO in the wire back, in the mesh backpack. That I thought was kind of neat.
Uh-huh.
Or we've seen sometimes the Yoda backpacks that's really Yoda, like Yoda's riding your back. I like those. I do chuckle when I see those things. No, I'd never want one, or would I
just said
wear
you
one?
would. You just said you would.
I think he already has one.
Too.
I'm trying to cover and protect myself. Too late, Jim. You got to think
Let's
before you
continue
speak.
on Chewbacca
No.
and whatnot.
No, when we finally do learn that it's General Zod, I do have to say I cheered because I absolutely loved this speech that he gave. Citizens of Metropia, your lives mean nothing to me. I will kill you or I will rule you because you are nothing to me. This place, Metropia, is a lie, a figment of an imagination weaker than mine. Prepare yourself for reality. This phony world you inhabited was created not by your Superman, but by a weak man who feared his own doom. For doom implies death, and death has no future. I am terror. I am eternal. I am hell. I am Zod. Oh, I love that.
This sequence also was a pivotal one for me because I remember it was the first time I actually saw that he had, his eyes, and that it wasn't like a robot version of Zod. That let me know that we're dealing with potentially a real person here.
Yeah.
Because I will say one of the things that was pretty consistent through my initial read-through was that I wasn't clear, because I was so convinced that, obviously Jor-El and Clark were robots, I was wondering if it went as far as this was a robot version of Zod. So especially with the armor and everything, I was totally not sure who this was. We find out later really clearly
who it is and
exactly
how he got there and all that.
But in my initial read, before we'd gotten to his backstory, I couldn't help but wonder, okay, how real is this guy? And when we saw his eyes finally, when Jor-El was flying up there, I started to think to myself, I'm like, okay, I think this guy is the real deal.
Yeah. See, I never once thought that Zod was a robot, but then again, I didn't really pick up on the whole robot trances or themes, but it was something when I read that, that's when I knew who the general was. I literally did not figure it out before then, and
that's what I'm saying. This was the sequence that for me started to turn me into realizing, wait a minute, we're dealing with the real deal here.
Yeah, that was an awesome. I put that down. I've read that thing multiple times. Every single time, I love reading it. I like reading out loud. I can just hear the Terrence Stamp voice in my head as I read it saying those lines, and that's why I do kick myself when he will kneel before me earlier. I'm like, oh, why didn't I see that? These are classic Zod stuff. I'm an idiot, and I was like just smacking myself. Now,
it's a great way to end the issue too. That's a very majestic looking. That I gotta say, that was the first sequence where I'm like, okay, the armor deal's starting to grow on me a little bit. I wasn't completely sold on it at this point, but it did start to grow when we got to see the Z on there. I think that was an interesting selling point for me versus the earlier, and that was deliberately omitted earlier on, I think, to keep us wondering who that was.
So we wouldn't know. If you saw a big Z on the chest, you would know immediately.
Yeah.
Well, most people would. I probably would have missed it. I'll be honest with you. I'll throw myself under the bus on that one. Now, this is actually, we talked earlier about with Wonder Woman and changing of the costumes, and this is a change in appearance of Zod that even before we found out why he was doing this, I did hoop and holler this. It was after he took off the helmet and after we saw the man under Zod that I had questioned for. I was like, wait, who is this? What's going on here? And then I needed his rest of his story to get, okay, yeah, this is the same Zod. When I first read that and I saw Zod, I was like, cool. I didn't mind the armor. I didn't mind that it wasn't, the Terrence Stamp looking guy because we really didn't see the face yet. I still in my head had pictured underneath her that once he takes off that helmet, it'll be the exact same guy I'm used to. So this was a definite, cool moment. And, just go from the ending right into the very next issue with that sweet cover of just Clark and Zod throwing down. I was just like, holy anticipated fights, Batman. I was really that was one I was like, yes, all right, we're getting some more cool fight downs because we had that great fight sequence with him and Diana where you could see him holding back. This is Zod. He's not going to hold back. He's not going to be able to hold back. He's going up against someone who is as fast, as strong as him, but that person has the military training. That has the discipline, of a fighting style, as well as he is a killer. Zod will kill. Clark will not. There is a huge difference between someone who has no remorse on the kill That makes him so much more dangerous than Diana. Because Diana is a killer, but she will think about before killing. Zod will kill. Boom. Done.
I also liked in this the fact that we got to see these people have been here for a year, a lot of them at least, and I like that these people have organized into two different factions, and that the citizens of Metropia would have to defend themselves here because Superman's fighting Zod, so he can't handle fighting Zod plus his entire army. So they need to stand up and do something here. They have to help, and I like that there's no hesitation. There's obviously some organization here. There's a hierarchy that is in place. And that to me is interesting. I liked seeing that because that felt very real. Because in a year, something would have happened.
Yeah, and these initial couple of pages do a great job at showing the chaos and anarchy of war. They could have very easily just shown Superman and Zod fighting, and I would have been happy. But they didn't. They showed the surrounding sequences. They showed what was going on. So you did get that feel, because this is a multi-front battle. You have on the one front, you have Zod versus Superman. You have the army of Zod versus Metropia, and then you have Equus versus Metropia as well. He in himself is his own one. He's a one-man army. He's an OMAC. He can completely defeat all of them basically by himself. He's that powerful. This is a guy who went toe-to-toe with Superman. What are these regular people going to do? Well, they're not just going to back down and run. This is their home. This is all they know. At this point in time, they don't know that Clark can get them home. This is what they got to fight for. This is their home. This is their peace. This is it. As far as they know, the rest of the world is dead. The rest of the universe is gone, and they're last of, humanity's hope. So, I'd like seeing that they knuckle up and they're going to throw down with something they have no chance against, but they're still going to try.
Metropia is now a fixer-upper. It's falling apart quickly.
Yeah, it went from paradise to, Euclid.
Wow.
Euclid, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is where I live, and it's changed since I was a child. It's more of a war zone now. Oh. Now, back on Earth, we get this great initial sequence. We get some cool stuff going on with the fighting, and then we bring it back to Earth. And I gotta admit, I was so into the story that I completely forgot about Leone and Orr. And as much as I love the characters, I forgot about them. And I was like, what? Oh yeah, we have this whole story still left to go on them, which was something I really digged. And here's where we get this great breakdown of what Leone is becoming, what even Equus is. These are the one-man army corps. They're the OMACs. But they're not just this technological creature. They have, a little bit of science. They got a little bit of, magic. They got a little bit of this, a little bit of that thrown into there. They talk about how they got the framework from a fallen angel, the skeletal structure of a fallen angel. And you see that one scene with Leone where he's got the knife that Diana had against Superman embedded into his arm. Even.
Yeah, and you can actually see a layer of like a skin type substance over it. And I like that visual because it does look visually different than the knife looked before because of the sheen of skin over it. So there's some kind of organic, type of a skin type of structure put over it, which I liked. The use of cancer as a battery was
it was an
well.
It was an enhancement agent that they used with the nanoid technology. And this is something that I said earlier about just how much I love Azrael's writing, because he does this complicated, layered thinking and just the total processing of this. This is, I will admit, I had to read through these pages a couple times to really get a grasp of everything that went into the OMAC. And I thought that was a cool factor behind it, that, this is a wonderful story. I was enjoying it, but I still had to think. He still had to push me. And that's something that, is impressive for me, especially because it gets you thinking beyond what is being told. Because one of the things they talk about, how death is no longer a deterrent for these things. Even dead, the body will continue on because of these nanites and because of the magic that's pumped into it. So that even itself is just a factor that is kind of like beyond creepy. Because normally you'd think if something bad happens to somebody, if this stuff, you get transformed and turned into this thing, if you die, you'll finally get peace. Well, he's never going to get peace. He'll never have rest. This is an ongoing thing. This is a ongoing, pain that he's going to continue suffering even after he's physically dead. And that was something that really just kind of like, shocked and rocked me, because I'm thinking of Leone, my buddy. This is me. right there is all messed up, and all these freaky things are happening to him, and I just like, wow, it's
shocked and rocked me.
Yeah. Hey, now, back in the Phantom world, this is actually, another. We're going back and forth, and it was funny. As sad and upset I was for Leone, you get back to the Phantom world, and things are not going well for the home team. They are getting, it handed to them, and that was something that I like seeing. In a good Superman story, you see he gets beaten down. You see, the pain, and he gotta, rise up and and take the defeat.
Samurai and X-Men. He's the vibe that he's reminding me of. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Back from Wolverine's past, right. And he had that silverish armor. It's got a little bit of that vibe going on. A little bit of strife too.
I wouldn't say Silver Samurai for Father, because
for Zod.
Oh, for Zod.
It's got I'm not saying that he's a clone of him. I'm saying there's a little bit of that vibe going on, a little bit of strife going on. Cable's clone.
I would say more of strife than Silver Samurai.
I think it's a combination of those things. I'm not saying it's a direct clone either. I'm just trying to. The armor reminds me of certain elements of a lot of different things. It's definitely unique to Zod.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to say that it's a clone of or anything like that. It's just I don't know. I was looking at it and just kind of had those elements to me.
Yeah, now, I did like, not only just the physical beatdown that Zod was giving him, he did do the the mental game. And that is a sign of a thinking, villain. That's what Zod is.
Or a manipulative,
a manipulative villain. Yeah. This is a thinking villain. This is a military mindset. You don't want to just physically go in and beat down, Superman, because guess what? You physically beat him down, he can physically come back, but if you start breaking his spirit, you start breaking what gives him his strength, you're going to actually do some more damage.
Trying to find anything that will give him an edge.
Yeah. Well, it's, bob and weave. It's the stick and move. It's even just, he's thrown out, and he did some great mind games because he was sitting there talking about how, and this was really the first time I really started seeing the motivation. Previous motivation has always been his hatred for Jor-El. This was his hatred towards Kal-El. Like, you disgust me, and you'd sicken your father, for we both expect more from the son of Jor-El.
I loved the shot of him beside the half body of Jor-El there, though.
Yeah.
Talk about adding manipulation to the whole thing. Here's a visual cue, in just in case you don't remember who Jor-El is.
Yeah.
Here's his torso to remind you.
This guy I just tore in half.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and it's, I like seeing it, but you also see, Superman try to fight back. Mm-hmm. He kind of hulks out a little bit and starts lashing, but it's a short-lived victory. Because, as he's flying into him, Zod starts digging in his feet.
I love seeing that visual, just seeing the ground crackling up. It's awesome.
And he gets back and gets into the bear hug, and it was just this great sequence of going back and forth, and it's something I got out of the Superman Doomsday fight. When I actually, when I read it, that we all wanted out of the TV show when Clark was Smallville when he was fighting Doomsday. We wanted that back and forth, bam, bam, punches so hard that caused the earth to shake and to rock. That's the kind of stuff you want to see when Superman fights somebody like Zod or Superman fights somebody like Darkseid. You want to see that power just unleashed. And I thought that, that was something that I got out of this, something I get like an energy out of. Even as I'm talking about it, I don't know if you can kind of tell I'm a little bit amped as I'm talking, because I'm just thinking of the kind of like the Rocky fight sequences, kind of goes through my head.
General Knox is here too, behind the corner, calling to Superman. General Knox from the Small Country. Remember how he went over as well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's right there and makes an appearance in this. He shows up a couple of times.
Yeah. Well, it actually makes sense that he did come over, so that's actually kind of cool.
And that alerts Zod to the name Superman.
Yeah.
This does show that, like, yeah, because at this point, Zod hasn't met him on Earth. That is the way I'm taking this, right? Is that the way the storyline's written? Because he seems
because he's surprised to hear him called that.
Yeah.
Well, I took it more of a Superman. Really? Come on, please. That's how I kind of took his shock at it. Not a Superman. Why did you call him Superman? He knows. Yeah, because even in his opening dialogue, he says this wasn't created by a Superman, but
That's a good point.
Yeah.
One of the cool things I did say, I liked how Zod, why he hated this world. And that was, the thing that really got me into this version of Zod. He's a little bit crazier. He's not your kinder, gentler Zod that we're used to. This
Not
is a
your
guy.
father's Zod.
Yeah. This was, for him, the Phantom Zone was this great prison. It was a perfect prison worthy of his, of him. It was a complete void of all life, of light, it was just pure darkness, pure nothing. It was the only thing worthy of holding him. And then Clark messed with it. Clark put that little speck of light, and he slowly starts going towards that speck of light. As he gets closer to the light, he's like, what's going on here? You've ruined this. When he finally breaks through and gets into, Metropia, he sees this peaceful, loving world, and it's, it's one of those things that sickens him. And he even says how he can smell Kal-El on the orb when he finds the orb. And he sits there and he just starts studying on it and brooding on it. And, over time, and that's why we see an older Zod when the helmet's bashed off, because he spent some time sitting in that, in the Metropia, sitting in this
if you look
paradise.
at him when he was originally put in the zone, he doesn't look much different.
He doesn't?
Well, take a look. This is originally put in by Jor-El right here.
Oh, true.
Mm-hmm.
I stand corrected.
If you look in the face, the facial features do look a little bit younger, but it is a very similar look. There's definitely some aging going on. The beard's longer. You definitely see in his face that, he's definitely weathered some time. And it is a testament to the art that he does look younger, definitely in the other pictures. Even though the hair is similar, he does look younger. So there's definitely an age difference. There is a sign of aging there, but it's not drastically different from his previous appearance.
Okay.
So, because that is Jor-El putting him in the Phantom Zone for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
It's interesting.
Well, that's the thing. I actually took it that I completely overlooked it or missed it, or I don't know. You know me.
Well, I liked that actually as a frame of reference as to what it looked like when he was first put in, because he's telling him the story of how he wound up there, and then also how this whole darkness thing came about. It was interesting to see, though, back in there that you see only Zod put in.
Yeah, they don't have Ursa or Nan in there.
Right.
So that's another thing. We definitely know this can't be continuity anymore because of we know what happened with Zod, how he was put in there. Right. We even know how he survived in the Phantom Zone because of a couple other stuff. They got that prison that got put part of a section of the prison that got put in there, and that's where they were able to live and all that.
Elseworlds always like that. I mean, this isn't an Elseworlds story, so don't get me wrong when I'm saying that. But one of the things I always liked about Elseworlds, there are a lot of Elseworlds stories that read really close to continuity, but there's certain little tweaks and elements that make them different. There's nothing wrong with a good, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, go through the whole list, story taking place that feels like it's in continuity, but being deliberately told as a mini-series. I think that's one of the reasons why, I kept saying that this would be great as a mini.
Right.
Outside of, definitely outside of continuity, because there are elements of it that I really like as that type of storytelling versus being in continuity. I think that's where some of my issues come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's but
although it's clear that I really don't have many at this point that are really.
I think we've worked through most of your issues on this.
Yeah,
there's a couple we have, and
I'm still stuck on some.
There's still some stuff you're stuck on, but as a general rule, I think you're through.
I liked it. Yeah. No, I mean I did. I am very surprised. I really did like this in later read-throughs, so it is interesting.
Now, I did like how we get the final pieces of the puzzle through this action sequence. We do finally see that, how this thing came about and how, Clark built this, he built the Phantom world based off the Phantom Zone technology. And when he first saw it, he realized what he did wrong. But it was, I took it that it was Lois who kind of convinced him, hey, this is a good thing. This is a good thing you did. Still keeping with that same support that we've seen with her. But he kind of, clears his mind of it, but lets her keep the knowledge. And that was, for me, I don't want to say that was a mistake, but it was. I can understand why he would trust her to have this knowledge, because she is a person I would trust in it. But I personally, if I was Superman, I wouldn't have pulled the knowledge from myself. I would have kept the knowledge of this device, and I actually wouldn't have sent it back into the Phantom world. I would have kept the device in either the JLA satellite or actually probably in the Fortress of Solitude. And that's something I would have just for the for the backup for the Earth, for its purpose and intention, but not to actually have it out there.
But obviously he, to a certain extent, didn't even trust himself with this knowledge or this power. So it was interesting to show that he trusted Lois to know about it in case it was needed. He trusted her to be more objective than he would be.
Yeah, but here's the thing. But by locking the device in the Phantom Zone, in the Phantom world, he wouldn't have been able to trigger it. So letting her know about this
there had
device,
to have been a way to trigger it. There had to have been something in place to trigger it if he wanted to.
I don't know. I took it that it was locked away, and it's not, and he couldn't get to it.
But they said, I shaped these automatons as caretakers, monitors, in case this place was ever needed, and the door had to be opened. Then I sent them the key. So obviously there was a plan in place for some way for them to know if our planet needed...
Yeah, there's probably a communication way that he could have sent them a signal saying, activate the device.
Hit that stage where we would need to escape.
Okay.
So, I mean, these robots were sent over for the purpose of... So there had to have been some form of monitoring two ways. Like, I get the feeling that Zod somehow knew what he was doing on this end because of the technology involved.
Yeah.
So there.
Well, Zod didn't know what he was doing. Zod figured it out the same way Clark figured it out.
No, because Zod was talking about that he was going to then come here and take this place over.
Well, that's because when Zod first came onto the thing, he studied it.
Though?
What?
I'm saying that orb has to, on some level... Like, Superman figured it out from looking at the technology.
Right. I think Zod did the same thing.
Right.
And Zod looked at it, studied it, figured it out.
Which means Zod knew what it was doing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we're both in agreement here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm saying that this device does offer a two-way connection.
Okay, yeah. It
has to.
Okay.
These caretakers are going to be able to open the door. How would they know when to open it?
True. Okay.
And he built them for the purpose to be able to open it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there has to be something there. And that isn't driven by Lois.
Right.
Otherwise, why build them?
No,
he didn't know about Zod.
Right. And that was something he could not have known about. And he was taking this Phantom Zone technology and perfecting it. He was trying to one-up his father, and it's what we naturally want to do. We want to have, any parent wants their child to have a better life than they had, and every kid wants to, do a little bit better than their old man. It's a natural reaction. But it's even, you think about it, because Clark's motivation has been... out of love, out of, his father could only save him. Clark wants to save everybody, so it's that whole trying to step up the thing. And I like the fact that it was, we see Clark getting the beat down. We see Clark, losing the fight. And it's not until Zod starts pushing that final button saying, I'm going to go through the gateway. And then I'm going to kill that world as well. I'm going to destroy this one, then I'm going to go over there, I'm going to destroy that one. I'm going to completely defeat you. And that was the thing that gave Clark that final oomph.
Here's the question. When Clark created this world, do you think he thought he was creating a completely brand new place and there was nothing there to boot out, like Zod, for example?
Yes. He created this with perfection in mind.
Right, because that's pretty pivotal to me, because if he created this and he thought Zod was there and he was wiping out a prison... I have a huge issue with this.
Now,
I can't see him building that place knowing that Zod would have access to it.
Agreed.
Knowing that, the kind of person that Zod is.
Or that he was wiping out his home.
Yeah.
And putting people there. I can't imagine him doing that. So I think that was just an accident.
He was creating it thinking he was creating a separate Phantom Zone. And he probably did create a separate Phantom Zone, but because of the similar technology, they were kissing up against each other, and that's what gave him the doorway to get over to, Clark's Phantom Zone.
Yeah, although Zod did really make it seem like from his dialogue that this was an affront to his world, because he was trapped in the darkness, and this light was created in his darkness. You take a look right there; he's watching this happen in front of him. So, I mean, it's kind of let there be light, and there was light, and it was good, and he's watching all this. And that would be a personal affront to see this son of Jor-El being the god of his world and creating a whole world in front of him. Changing his whole universe around him would be something that would be like a worse punishment than what Jor-El did to him initially.
Yeah, it would be another smack in the face kind of thing, and that's actually one of the things that I like about this interpretation, this reimagining of Zod. This is a different person than what we're seeing. This is he's got the personal grudge against Kal-El. Now the other Zod also, because he's only had 2 defeats, and Brainiac and Kal-El are his only 2 defeats. So there's that personal grievance the two have, but this to me is more of a on a personal level. The one is a military defeat. This is a personal, defeat of his character, of his being.
This predates the whole concept, though, that Zod was defeated by
Right.
Brainiac. So you're under a different.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
I'm throwing multiple Zods.
His enemy here is Jor-El at this point, exclusively, and now Kal-El because of that. So we're not. That's why you're not hearing Brainiac's name thrown around in this. So it's really different. That the Brainiac story, as told by Jeff Johns, is after this.
Right.
It's an interesting little twist between this. It is funny how Zod's trying to change Superman at the core of who he is. Like, he's really trying to get to his emotional personality and what drives him and get him to hate Zod and get him to really
wants that rage.
betray
he wants
who he
that
is.
anger.
He wants to betray himself at his core.
Well, that's the ultimate victory. If you can get somebody to...
It's almost like he was manipulating the Vanishings for the purpose of making him the man that he was becoming in our world. Like, Zod was doing that to him. It puts a lot of that responsibility for the kind of man that Clark became on the other side on Zod and what Zod was how Zod was manipulating his world.
Well, he's the master
responsible.
strategist. This is Zod. He's the military general, and it goes even beyond saying he's the military general. He's a military genius, and that's the key of Zod. You take that and you twist it and you make him even hate his objective. Someone who has just that level of strategy, can wage a war and completely destroy you on all levels, even if they don't hate you. It's like nothing personal, just business. This is personal. So this is not only going to go, he's going all out on Clark, on Kal-El, just because this is a personal affront to him. You said it at best when, there's this, spark of light in his world. He changed what was perfect.
Yeah. Or at least what was he considered his home.
Right.
Be like someone coming to your house and rebuilding all the rooms to their liking, not necessarily yours.
Yeah.
Pink everywhere.
Now, I do like the fact, though, that we still start seeing more of the return of real Clark. Because it's when Zod threatens Earth, Hero 101, you have to protect the innocent. Goes and, does the quick bam, bam punch, gets away, snatches up the Earth, sends it back to the one person that he trusts back there. What did I say?
The Earth. He took the Earth from him. He had the whole thing. He's got the whole world
in his hand.
I so knew where you were going with this.
I had that goofy grin on my face, and you knew where I was going.
Oh,
Thanks for joining in.
Just sing along.
I feel dirty
with
now.
The Sensei.
Yeah.
There's your new podcast.
Sing along with the Sensei.
I do wish that this had like the little yellow dot going along with it.
And you can follow the ping ball.
Little ping pong ball, yeah.
It'll be your head flipping around. Interesting that his choice of who's sending it back to, because he was not aware of what was going on with Father Leone. He made this connection with this man. This man became a confidant to him, a trusted confidant, to the point that he was willing to bear his own soul and his own faults and his own worries about himself. He sent it back to this man. And I thought that was really interesting, that we're left with this cliffhanger of this man who's become OMAC Mark IV, right? Or version 4?
Yeah, version
4.
And it was sent back to him with Superman counting on the fact that this man would make the right choice, that he would be the one. It was an interesting ending to that issue.
Now, we're talking the cover of 215. Oh, my God. That was another just a beautiful,
wraparound. It was a wraparound in the original issue. And I remember getting this issue and flipping over, and I was like, wow, because it has everybody who's anybody in this story all the way through. The entire Justice League is featured. All of the supporting characters are Equus. All the robot characters are here. Father Leone. It's Or we've got Superman in various different poses, and it's great to see even the Flash and Aquaman, and Aquaman was one of the characters that that was a great version on this was gorgeous. Aquaman version of this one. I really enjoyed this whole cover, and it was a great way to end off this year, because it was a year of storytelling for me when I read it, and I was like, ooh. And it really was the draw for me in this, at least for the first year, because I wasn't into the story. I got to admit that when I originally read the first time through. It was the art. I kept coming back to enjoy the Jim Lee art, and this does read much better collected, and to be able to read it all together and in multiple read-throughs to really analyze what was being done here. It's a very deep story. So it is funny. I'm still baffled that we're talking about 215 now, and I'm like, wait a minute, I really like this now.
Yeah.
And I did not. When this was first selected, I was kind of like, oh, this will be interesting because I'm going to be the guy who didn't like it, and I'm going to be coming at it from that standpoint. And I'm like, okay, I've read this thing like 700 times now in order for us to finally, complete this. And I'm like, I'm really into it now.
You really dig this now.
That was my plan all along.
Once again, this that cool opening bit where we're seeing this the inner dialogue of Clark, but we're also seeing the action sequence of the whole overall battle. All that I am, was, and yet still may be, was because of an ending. Why is it I've spent my life doing everything in my power to prevent endings? Why is it I live to save worlds when one is ending made by me? I thought that for me was a really just cool, just inner dialogue once again of Clark. It wasn't the I really messed up. What did I do wrong? This is still, we're starting to see Superman coming back on this one. He's still fighting to save lives, but he still, is that character who's in turmoil. He still has the crisis of faith. He still has the crisis of conscience, but we're seeing him work through it. We're seeing Superman coming back where he's going to continue fighting. He's not laying down. He's going to continue raging against, these forces of darkness because he is Superman. And, just seeing all the people fighting around him and the cool sequence of him flying in, you get that classic Superman pose of him flying, the bright, it just popped on you. So that was something that these first couple pages, this was the beginning of the return of my Superman, the Superman that I enjoy so much. And that was something I really liked coming from this, chapter.
Ultimately recovering from Zod's manipulations.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that this way now. A lot more that Zod, was really doing these things to mess with Clark. I definitely want to add next to my Batman skull a Robo Clark head.
Yeah.
Batman skull, a Batman skull with rings popping out of it, and a Robo Clark head right next to it. I think that'd be great bookends.
Yeah. That'd be a great bookend.
Yeah.
Because you got the dead Batman and the dead Superman.
Right.
That'd be perfect connection. And then you add the Robo Clark, backpack, and you're good to go.
Yes.
That'd be great. Where would the zipper go? His neck? So it pops back?
Yeah. So his head pops open.
Yeah. Because I think the head would be great to hold like an iPod or an MP3 player. Because like I said, headphones in the ears.
Yeah.
Detachable arms.
That'd be great. Well, I think that's where you put your like thermos.
Yeah.
They'd be insulated.
Your water bottle.
Yeah. Down the arm. Yeah.
I do want this thing to be fully functional.
Actually, you know what you could do? Instead of just putting it, that could be like one of those Camelbacks where it's, if you fill the liquid actually in the arm and a little tube comes up.
Nice.
Oh, that is pretty good.
Yeah.
So you never have to take it. That'd be great for bicycles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could wear the RoboClark backpack and actually do like lengthy mountain biking tours.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that coming down the street?
DC, are you listening?
Tour de France. What in the world is on his back? And it probably is pretty aerodynamic.
Look, it's Clark Kent.
Yeah.
It's Superman.
Now, if this was a video podcast, you guys would see me shaking my head going, there's some lines even I don't cross. I don't think I'd want, a representation of the dead Clark sitting on my back.
Oh, you'd be the first one to buy it if it was in there,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Can't say that one with a straight face.
Yes, I'm so much better than you. I'm proper. I would never buy that.
I'd buy two. What am I talking about? Just because I know it'd get pulled from the shelf, so I'd have two.
Well, you'd keep one in the box. So yeah. So doesn't get damaged.
I have a mint condition Clark Kent backpack still in box.
When Superman hits Zod here and we see the helmet shatter, I loved that. That was the reason he lost the helmet.
Yeah.
It was,
and just you see them when they're hitting, and it's, initially like the ground is shaking, and initially I'm thinking it's just because we have two Kryptonians fighting. Later, when we learn that these two are so connected to the planet that hitting them and the damage to each other is damaging actually the world itself. I've liked seeing that connection. I liked when they announce it, how it actually fully plays out. That was a nice little catch. That, one of the cool things about this series is even up to the last issue, I'm still getting swerves. I didn't see that swerve coming. I literally thought it was just because of power of Kryptonians hitting each other. Now, back to Father Leone, who is in full Equus mode now. And this is one of those things that just kind of breaks your heart, because you see him, he's connected, he's hooked up, and even Orr is still pushing the buttons, because, Orr, communicates in with him. Orr's been dismissed by the powers that be. They said, hey, thanks for your stuff, you're done now. And he's like, fine, I'll leave. He wasn't going to go away, and here we're seeing he's going to play his cards. He's offering Leone an option. You got two choices. Either deal with the people who did this to you, or you come with me and you deal with me. And I was like, this guy, I hate him, but he's such an awesome character. This is a sequencing that really, I appreciated his appearance in Countdown even more. I liked the character there. I liked Equus there when, Karate Kid just takes him down and destroys him, and you see Orr playing the kid. Seeing this stuff here really made me appreciate what I read before.
The name.
Pilot. Oh, God, yeah.
Playing off this is something Superman wouldn't do. He refused to play off his religion. He refused to violate that. To give him the name of Pilot as that code name, basically, a religious figure from history who passed judgment in a very difficult situation like that, it just really is right in the face of everything that Father Leone believes in.
Yeah. Now, and here's the interesting thing: the multi-levels of Pilate. Because you think about it, when Pontius Pilate did have Jesus up there, and he was going to with a crucifixion. There were the other villains' options, and Pilate's like, he turned to the crowd saying, "You want me to crucify this guy who I don't see he's done anything wrong?" And the crowd was the one who really said for crucify, Jesus. It wasn't Pilate saying, "Aha, I'm going to get you."
Think about what Pilate's job was.
Right. He was the final one who did sign the death warrant.
By the very fact that Pilate said, "You really want me to do this?" Yeah. Pilate could have very easily said, "No way, it's this other guy that's going, sorry about it."
But it's that whole thing where, and I like the fact that, because, with how, Pilate washed his hands, and he really, sealed the fate. There's a huge religious debate here. And I think
love that you're singing Sympathy for the Devil now all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know. Wash his hands, seal the fate. But it's, now you know where I got all my religious training from, the Rolling Stones. No, but seriously, there is that other side of the whole Pilate
I don't want to get
debate.
into a lengthy Pilate debate.
Oh, yeah, no.
We could go into that for hours.
Yes, I know.
But I think the interesting thing about Pilate in there, did you okay, then I guess let's simplify it. Did you take that as a negative or a positive?
See, that's the thing. When I first read this, I was a complete 100% agreement with you that it was a kind of a stab, a twist in the, twist of the knife to Leone and his beliefs. But then I started thinking, you look at when he was in the hospital and he took the name Francis Assisi, and we learned all that cool background of Leone and Francis Assisi and all that. I'm wondering if
he's still manipulating him.
Well, I'm wondering if this is a Azzarello thing where he's trying to do a multi-level thinking of going with Pilate. Because, on one hand, Pilate is the person who signed the death warrant. Pilate is the one who made for Jesus to be crucified, but he's also didn't want to do it. He was the reluctant.
I was thinking it.
He didn't, flat out say, yes, this is a great thing. So is that what Azzarello is saying about Father Leone? Father Leone is this monster now, but he is this reluctant monster.
Against his will.
Against his will. I'm wondering. See, this is something that really this recently popped in my head as we started. As actually our last discussion kind of gave birth to this, and I started really rereading this last issue, trying to figure out Leonie's fate. Because we had that last time when we talked about this, we flat out said that Leonie had gone over to the dark side, and we lost Leonie in this battle. And I started rereading this, seeing did we actually lose him?
I don't think we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we know there, because it does become an interesting question of, I don't know. He definitely has taken a major dark turn, though, because he chose, and he admits this, he chose to let Orr do this to him to a certain extent. Because he sided with Orr and he let Orr run his cure on him and didn't put his faith in the overall plan. Because really, going with Orr here, in many ways, was turning his back on his own beliefs by doing this.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting, I don't know, it's very deep on so many levels as far as whether or not...
Did we lose Leonie or not? And that is, for me, one of the big... I don't want to say unanswered questions, but it's a question that's open for debate.
Well, the key is what happens to Leonie after where we ultimately see him go in this.
Right.
And I wish we had seen that. I would love to see that.
Yeah. Now, as Leonie, picks the third choice and goes and hits the orb and heads into the Phantom world, we go back to the world, and it's once again, you go right back into the action. You go right back into pure chaos and anarchy as Superman and Zod are just beating on each other. Thunderdome rules, no holds barred. But I do like.
Rules.
Hey, I'm throwing as many movie references as I can. I do like seeing.
Expecting Tina Turner to pop in or something like that. Yeah.
Hey, we don't need another hero, man.
Wow.
Sad thing is that you actually beat me to that.
Now, I do like seeing, though, Lois going up against Equus. And, he is, he's got that cocky attitude because this is a guy who you threw down with Superman. He knows what he can do. He knows he's a terror. But we talked about earlier about, one of the cool stuff about Lois is the fact that she doesn't back down. She knows there's no way she can take this guy. She knows that for a fact, but she's not going to back down. She's not going to walk away. That's not what a hero does. A hero faces the odds, the overwhelming odds, and finds a way. And I like the fact that the way she finds the way is the robot Laura. Because she's a character I completely forgot about her character up until this point when we see her
Lois didn't
arrive.
find that way there, though. Laura did.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Because it was interesting, just to tell you what a creep Equus is, he was getting perverse pleasure out of tormenting her.
Yeah.
Putting fear into her. I mean, he is enjoying this. He's inflicting pain on himself specifically for the purpose of terrifying the heck out of her. And he doesn't want her to just die, because he could have killed her right there. But he wanted to torture her first. Yeah. Mentally torture. What a creep he is. Ugh.
Yeah. But it was neat seeing, though, that it was his own ego that outdid him. Because he's sitting there, as you said, he's cutting himself, putting the claws there, and that gave Lara the opportunity to take those claws and drive them into his chest. Yeah. And it goes back to what Orr said earlier about how he's irrational, unpredictable. He had the roid rage going. He wasn't a thinking, villain that they needed. And we see that go down. And I liked seeing just how all that played out, but also even seeing Superman swoop in to stop her from killing him. This is Superman. This is Clark Kent coming back. He's no longer Kal-El. Even when Lois, makes the comment and corrects herself, he's like, no, call me whatever you want. It's that cool moment of he's Clark Kent again. He's no longer just this man who's staying away from his emotions. He's coming back, and he's not going to let robots, mom kill this monster. Even though it's got it coming. He knows it's got it coming, but he's still not going to let it happen.
This whole bit with Lois and Clark, it's funny how I'm reading this a little differently now. I don't know so much that Clark is worried that he's going to die here, as much as he never wants another day to go by without her knowing what he wanted her to know, without a chance to have said goodbye to her, without that statement, because he lost that. He came back and she was gone, and he never got to say the things that he really wanted to say to her about what she brought to him, what she meant to him, what she's done for him. And it was interesting how that was his first. I mean, obviously he's thinking there's a possibility, this might, what happens if this doesn't work out? What happens if we don't make it out of here? What if this, doesn't go the way that I'm thinking of it, and he wants to say that. But I do think the point is, even if he thought he was 100% everybody was going to live, this was a happy moment or whatever, he still would have said these same words.
Yeah.
Because he really needs her to know that, like, hey, over this last year, one of my biggest regrets is that I never had the opportunity to really tell you these things, and I need to make sure you know them now.
Yeah, and I liked her response to that. Kick his ass and save the day.
Yeah.
That was that right there. That's that Lois Lane that's, that every man girl kind of, attitude where she's not prim and proper Lois Lane, but, it's that really cool person that you want to hang out with. That's the great response. And I was like, yeah, that's Lois. That's cool stuff going on. Now, wait, I
love this, though. Father, forgive me, but it's that easy. Because he's even debating in his head, is that really what I need to do here? Is that the right step with abandoning this world and doing all that? Mm-hmm. And it is that easy. It's that simple, and he sees it. And it is funny how sometimes heroism really is as simple as making the right choice to just do the right thing, to just make and take that step. And he even sees the orb coming through at this point in time, realizing that is exactly what needs to happen, because he sees the orb there in the background when he's saying that, which I really liked.
Yeah.
That was a cool visual.
Yeah, he knows the only way for this to end is he's got to destroy this world. He's got to basically end Earth's backup plan. He's got to, send the people back. But I like seeing him open up on Zod now. This is the last round. This is a guy who is trained by, who trained with Batman, who trained with Diana.
And learned from his father.
And learned from his father.
I like that he's pulling in from all of those elements from his whole entire background. I wish he had said more about the Kents.
Yeah.
That was something that I really wished at some point in time would have been mentioned.
Yeah, that would have been nice seeing them. Well, we haven't seen them at all in this, which is, it is kind of a weird thing in a Superman story.
I would have almost liked to have seen at the end here as we see him reconnect with his humanity there.
See him with the farm. Yeah,
the Kents would have been something, just a quick little flashback to my parents in Smallville, or, just something, just a quick little reference to them on some level. I don't know that, it's not like a big problem for me, but it's just a wish list. If I would have liked something, one panel of that would have been kind of cool for me.
Just some reference.
Even when he's saying that, he's saying, Father, I've learned so much from you, but I've learned from others as well. And he mentions Diana and Batman. It's like, hello, on top.
Yeah, that's right there. It could have been added into.
It was an interesting omission to me. I thought that should have been there. Because I think they are the key to one of the key reasons why he's so drastically different from Zod. Why he's not Zod, or a similar type of character, which is interesting.
And now, this was that final ultimate battle where he just basically picks up Zod, slams him into and through the planet. Basically kind of saying, that's it, I'm destroying this planet, and I'm using Zod as the sledgehammer to do it. I thought that was not only a cool way to incapacitate Zod, but also a cool way for him then to go and reactivate the orb. And as the people who could make it through the orb on their own made it, if not, he would carry them through. And that, again, is we're seeing the reemergence of our Superman. He's reactivating, he's getting all the people, good and bad, through that orb. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that he was grabbing the bad guys and getting them into the orb as well, getting them off of this world as well. He wasn't going to leave anyone stranded behind. And as he's flying through, finding the different people, that was, when he runs into Leone. And that, for me, was a great sequence between the two of them that I've read multiple times. And every time I'm reading it, I'm kind of interpreting it a little bit differently.
This is an interesting thing to interpret, too, because Superman is assuming that Leone sent it back because Leone believed it was the right thing to do, when realistically, Leone doesn't know what's going on this end. Leone was doing it as his own backdoor out of his own situation, believing that, which there is a certain element of salvation here with Leone, because Leone was choosing not to be Orr's mercenary and not to be subjected to what they wanted him to do on the other side. So there is an element of him rebelling against that and saying, no, I am not going to be your puppet. I am not going to become this.
He's trying to choose the better of the two. He's trying to choose the correct way.
He's given choice A and B, and he's taking choice C.
Right. and that's kind of a Superman thing to do. You're like, oh, you can't save everyone. Well, I'm going to do plan B, plan C, save everybody. And that's kind of a Superman thing, and that's where I was kind of seeing a redemption of him, which is part of the reason it kind of breaks my heart to see when he first lands, and when he first lands there, he's covered in blood of all those innocent people that he slaughtered there, because we learned earlier that Leone had programmed in him every form of fighting, known to mankind. And the system was designed to operate on autopilot. So this creature lands on this planet. We know there's some confusion in the crossover because we saw that in Clark. When he first arrived, there was a little bit of confusion as he was getting the groove of his surroundings. So that monster lands in the middle of a war zone. He's automatically in combat mode, slaughters everyone around him.
And they're attacking him too.
Right. Well, they think he's another Equus. They think he's another villain. So you go into the automatic mode, and he's just, and that's something that really kind of, it hurt. And that's where I started thinking, does Leone completely lose it? But he still has that guilt over what happens. He still has that, I'm a monster. I have to find a way to stop this. And that's where I see the salvation in, Father Leone. There's still some of him left in there. And I don't know if I'm just reading this because I want this guy to be saved.
Well, he's taking responsibility for his actions here, too, because he believes when he says it's a hell of my own design, he designed this because of the fact that he even got hooked up with Orr, that he even followed through on this. Because I think it was no accident. He knows Orr was not a good guy.
Yeah.
He knows he was getting involved with somebody bad, and he knows he was making a deal with the devil to try and save his own life. So he had to have known all along, and I think he's admitting that. And I like that he's saying, I knew who I was getting involved with. I knew he didn't know this was going to happen, but he ultimately knew that it was something that wasn't going to be pretty. There was going to be a price for whatever he was doing. Had no idea that it was going to be on this level. I do think also it's cool to see the technology trying to connect with the eye in the sky, going back to things that we've seen in other OMAC storytelling later on, even though this isn't really connected to that. It is interesting to see that that it's trying to connect with satellite technology like we have today, and it can't.
Right, because it's on its own. Now, I like seeing the Superman Father Leone fight, because it's one of those classic things when a hero comes across somebody and their first reaction, of course, is to get into a big fight. Now, in his case, this is another version of Equus. He can recognize the technology. He recognizes what's going on. He actually even sees that it's a level up on what he's dealing with, so naturally he's going to fight it out. But I tell you, when he bashes the head off, the face off of it, and he sees Leone there and he realizes who this is, I was just like, oh my God. You can just see the shock and the horror on Clark's face. And that was something that really kind of brought it home for me.
Could you kill a friend of yours? And this is for both of you. Could you kill a friend of yours in that situation? Like, because he asked him to kill him. Could you do that?
No. Could not. No.
Here, it's a tough thing. It's part. You know what? It depends on who the person is. There's some people I would have a hard time with. Some people.
If it was Sean, yeah.
Well, it also depends on like the person. And it's like our buddy Joe.
Okay.
I know Joe well enough to know that if he was trapped in this hell, he would want me to kill him. And it would break my heart to do it, but I would do it. Because I know Joe. He would not. Joe is the kind of guy who would not want to be out of control like this.
I guess what the issue would be, and I guess this is the fine line on it. I'm not questioning your morality, or I don't mean it that way. Would there be a part of you that's thinking, though, we can find a way to cure this, we can find a way to fix this, we can find a way, or would you just assume that you're lost?
See, that's how I would think with you. I know you probably wouldn't want me to kill you over this.
I wouldn't say, Jim, kill me.
Yeah, see, I think with you, I would have a harder time because I know your personality different than Joe's.
I got to say, okay, we got to go under this. Let's stick with the way the storytelling is. I believe Leone really wants him to kill him right here.
Right.
And he's there's no doubt in his mind or anything like that. So let's take you're using me as an example because you're thinking that I wouldn't mean it.
Right.
Let's go into the theory the person genuinely means it. But there's that part of where you're you. In my case, what I would think, and this isn't let's say we're right or wrong. I agree with what you're saying with Joe and why you would think that, so I'm with you. But my thinking would always be that person's irrational. There's got to be a way to cure this. If they can build him like this, we can undo it. So I couldn't do it because of that. Would you think that, though, or would you be – I don't know. It's tough. I mean, obviously, with the craziness of this world.
Yeah, see,
that's a tough thing to do in that situation, in that moment.
That is
especially, and I know how you feel about Joe, so that's why I'm throwing that out there. I don't know if you're looking at Joe's face and you're saying to yourself, "Okay, I know Joe really wants this," and I'm agreeing with you. You know Joe well enough to know if he meant it. So I'm going to he 100% means it. But wouldn't there be that part of you that was thinking to yourself, "Okay, if they can do it, they can undo it."
Yeah. See, I think that would be the part that would eat me alive in guilt.
Yeah.
You know, that would be
the part. It's a heck of a responsibility. Either way.
Yeah, that would be hard. And I say I would do it, but to be honest with you, I don't know if I could pull the trigger. I don't know if I could do it.
Be considered a betrayal.
Yeah, it's
because he's counting on you here to end his pain. So if you don't do it, you're betraying him.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you were to turn around and find out later they could have undone it, then you've betrayed him. It's a vicious place to be in. Superman. And ultimately, he did the right thing. He had to stick to who he was and what he believes in his code. Very simple. You know what? It goes back to the cancer thing.
Yeah.
Moral-wise, whether or not Superman actually could cure it, I go back to the email that we got. I think it says it brilliantly. He has to think to himself, what is the right thing to do for this person now? What is the right thing that's going to stick to my code of who I am and things like that? And this is a great example of Superman doesn't kill. He does not kill.
Yeah.
He stopped Equus from being killed. Great example right here of, he tries to save Zod. In this case, he couldn't kill Father Leone.
Yeah, see, and
that's who he is.
That is who Superman is. So I'm glad he didn't.
And he would try to find a way to cure him.
He would try to find a way to cure him and undo what was done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's it's a toughie, and it's this sequence here, because when Equus shows up, and calls Leone brother, that's where you see the Leone have that rage against him, and just those two go into the vortex together, and that's the question: is does Leone let go of his humanity as he attacks Equus, or is he stopping him? Is he saying, I have to stop this monster from doing any further damage? I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know what happens with him. And that is part of the thing that is really, it's killing me inside, because I want to know what happened to Leone. Did he get saved, or is he damned? Is this, damnation or salvation? Which is it for him? Or is it the eternal torment? It's
painting here from Michelangelo's painting.
Yeah.
I love that interpretation of it. And it totally fits here, except in this case, Superman's the God role, and Zod is denying it.
Yeah.
Adamantly denying it, because it is that violation again. If this person came in and became a god in my world, and no, I will not. Give
and it's that. He's defiant. He's defiant to the end. And I like the fact that
it's a moral decision for him. It's a moral dilemma.
Yeah. But I liked how a couple things. One, how we went back to that those three words that he heard: Superman, save me.
Right.
Yep.
And that's what first gets the attention. And then as he approaches Zod pulls back his hand. I was so expecting the typical ending where the villain tries to pull the hero into the vortex, but Zod's like, no. I'm going back into the unknown, back into my darkness, back to where I belong type thing, where I kind of like seeing him do that.
But ultimately, I'm going to show you that I adamantly deny who you are and what you stand for, and everything you symbolize is an affront to me. And that was that last moment. That was his way of saying that to him. And that moment was more important to Zod. That was more revenge to Zod than anything else. And there's another way to get into his head and just dig in. That fit the character. It fit the story too. I really liked that moment and the way it played out. Now, this is real interesting with all these people returning from the vanishings, because you made an interesting point about, were there people that died?
Yeah,
and would people notice that?
Did the dead bodies come over? Was there, we're in the middle of this war and this chaos. Now, we do see a couple of people are hurt.
But the reason why the dead bodies didn't come over, though, we did cover that. One of the things about the dead bodies, Superman was rescuing these people and leading them and ushering them over.
Right.
He carried the people that couldn't make it, and the other people were led to the gateway. So they wouldn't, unless they were carrying their dead with them.
But here's the thing. Wouldn't you want to bring the dead bodies home?
Not if you're trying to escape a planet that's destroying itself around you.
I don't know.
They didn't have like a cart, like bring out your dead, like in the old Monty Python. They weren't.
But I'm not dead yet.
Bring out your dead. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's that one guy on there that they conk. Yeah. No, but I mean, they didn't. I totally took that as, the planet was being destroyed.
Right.
You said it best. These two giants were fighting each other, and because of their connection, the planet was being destroyed around them. I don't think the last thing they were thinking about, let's pick up Uncle Johnny's arm, and you carry his leg, and let's bring him back and give him a proper burial.
Hey, I don't know. Here's the thing. It's one of the things with...
Would you?
I'd like to think I would, actually.
Really?
Honestly, yeah. Now, if I had to choose between...
I'd like to think that I'd pick up the little kid that's screaming in the corner that needs to be carried out.
Let me finish. Okay. Now, you always take wounded over the dead. Mm-hmm. But if you're not carrying a wounded person, you do bring back the dead. That's, like you look at a lot of the in combat situations where, if you're in the middle of on the front line, and you're pulling your wounded back first. But if you can, you do pull back the dead bodies so that they can get that proper burial.
Now, see,
it's that honoring the soldier.
And I totally agree with your concept there. I'm not arguing about that. The planet is coming down around them. At this point in time, it's everybody making sure that they're watching out for each other, making sure that rocks that are tumbling down, they're moving stuff out of the way, they're climbing, trying to find paths out.
Right.
I'm not carrying a dead body through all that.
No,
I'm all for, what your sentiment, I'm totally 100% with. So I'm not trying in any way to downplay what you're saying. I'm just talking about the situation on their planet. This is worse than, in my eyes, this is worse than leaving a burning building. If they aren't out in a set amount of time, they're done.
And I agree with you, and that's why I say I would like to think I would do this. I can't 100% for certain say I would. If the planet's going crumbling around me, I would like to think I would help an injured person, but I can't even say that for certain. I would like to think I would be, that help out the injured. Oh, come on, we'll make it together, buddy. And I don't know if I would. I could be like the George Costanza, where I push the old lady aside and run for the fire exit.
Wow.
I could very easily see myself doing that, but I'd like to think I would. I'd like to think I'm a better person than that.
I would too.
But in the end, you don't know what's going to happen when it hits the fan. You don't know how you're going to react.
Mandy, would you bring a corpse back with you, or would you just kind of?
I would say I would make sure that everyone that was still alive was safe, and then if I had the opportunity, I would.
Okay.
But I'm first going to worry about making sure that everyone who's still alive gets out.
I'll go on the record and say that I think a burial in the Phantom Zone isn't such a bad thing. It was a beautiful world. They had those beautiful fish, Easter fish, or whatever they were, that we talked about earlier. I think it's a decent burial. They can stay right there. On the other hand, I would like to think that the old lady you pushed down, I would help her up and carry her out, and we'd be talking about that mean man. The old lady you pushed down when you're carrying your dead guy.
Now, here's the thing: if I was carrying the dead guy, I wouldn't have pushed the old lady.
You probably hit her with his foot.
If I was carrying the dead guy, that means I would have been a nice person. Okay, the person who's knocking the old lady down isn't carrying a dead guy.
No,
that's the sinister. That's the George Costanza.
So carrying a dead guy makes you a pleasant fellow?
Yes,
really?
Yeah. Hey, an SOB is not going to carry a dead body.
So that's a black hand.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd carry lots of dead people over old ladies
for different reasoning.
Well, that's true.
If I was conscious enough where I would carry that dead body out, and that I came across that old lady and she needed my help, I would have put the dead body down and then picked her up and carried her. That's the kind of guy who would carry the dead body out would have helped out that old lady first.
So in other words, if you aren't caring for the dead, if you aren't carrying out a dead body, old ladies beware.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'll have to remember that if I'm ever in a disaster with you. If I see you come running and you don't got a dead body on your back, get
out of the way.
This will be the warning sign. Wow. To live in your mind. That just goes to like such a twisted level.
Yeah.
Kind of crowded.
Yeah, it's scary.
There's only a couple of us in here, so it's not that crowded.
Yeah. I never thought I'd say this. I like the guy that would be carrying the dead body. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, what multiverse is he from? All right, Superman coming back. It's got to be tough to come back from something this traumatic now. And it's funny how Clark, which I didn't catch, as you guys mentioned this last episode, or last time we recorded, I shouldn't say last episode, last time we recorded this, you guys mentioned this, and it was an interesting catch. He had given up his Clark persona in our world, basically hadn't kept that going, but the Robo Clark gave him an opportunity to take that back, as now he's been witnessed by others as being part of the Vanishing. So now that he's back home, he can't go hug Lois.
Yeah, he has
He
to
cannot
be
acknowledge
Superman.
her.
Yeah.
That has got to be so tough. It is one of the things that this guy, I see those moments, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I'd want to be him. It's so tough to be Superman, to make those right decisions all the time. I would slip up. And that's got to be the hard part about him, is he can't, because it puts her in danger.
Yeah, how easy would it be to call her baby or honey or something like that, or even on her end, just to slip up and say, "Hey, Clark." Ooh, I can't say that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
the responsibility on both of them is very, very difficult, and it is something that I see this moment right here. If they weren't married, you wouldn't have this moment.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's actually it's funny. It's one of the advantages Green Arrow and Black Canary have, in that everybody knows they're married.
Right.
But when they're in costume. So those two can have moments together and not worry about it.
And actually, this is an advantage they had before they were married, in the sense that Superman and Lois could interact like this, because before she knew his secret, he could do that. So it is something that has changed due to their being married that I think is interesting. It leads to these type of visual moments that I find interesting. Right. I love how Delilah still is very angry.
Of course. It's still an affront on the planet, and there's still this unanswered question out there. Now, I like how Clark is being kind of retrospective about how people eventually will move on from this, and they'll eventually take their pieces of what happened and only remember certain events as they happen. It's not going to be a full-on memory of the occurrences they're going to know. They're going to remember they vanished to this peaceful world. Some bad guy showed up. Superman came, kicked his butt, saved our lives. They're not going to know the whole
because
darkness
they don't know the whole
of it. Right.
Only Lois knows the whole story.
Right. And they're never going to know the whole story. And that is even a little bit more of a kind of thing.
Because I had a question about that initially when I was reading it through. I'm like, well, would they really forget? But I think part of the problem is their stories would be told. They'd go on talk shows. All that would happen, because I think that's where our society is. But they don't know the whole story, so there's only so far this is going to go. You know, Superman saved the day. It's another Superman, after them being
good
gone
job,
for years.
Superman.
Right,
hoorah.
Right.
Woohoo. Yeah. Woohoo. Starting to lose my voice there.
Now, all right, let's talk about Leone.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, when you looked at the prologue and the afterword in the absolute version, you got Azzarello talked about how they deliberately left certain things open-ended for people to think about afterwards. So what do you think happens with Leone? Because this isn't a story that's ever told. We see the two of them going on and fighting. Does he ever find salvation? Or is he lost? What is your thoughts? Mandy, go ahead. What do you think with Leone? Or what do you hope?
I would like to think that he would find salvation in some way. Just going off, that this isn't something that he really wanted for himself. So I would like to think that he finds salvation somewhere, but I don't know. After all the little tinkering that's been done with his head, it's one of those situations where you just don't know. Here's a question I think we should probably put in this from all of us, and Mandy, I'll throw it right back at you first. Has his head been tinkered with so much to the point that he is not responsible
for those moments where he snaps. Like, he seems very lucid when he goes after Equus.
Right.
But the earlier bit where all those people were killed, are you taking that? I mean, I guess you both, and this is what we do both, that he was not responsible for that, his programming was?
Yeah, I could see that, because there was that image where you see him looking at the blood on his hands, and, you know, you've got all the dead people standing around where it says terminated, and he's in shock of that. You know, he says, "What have I done?"
Yeah, even when Orr was talking to him about the programming, said, you know, you don't have to think about it. It will just react. So
Yeah.
he wasn't in control of himself when those were happening. I took it that was the fuzziness from the transport over, then the monster was in charge, not him.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing, because of his personality, because of part of him is saved, and there is that guy, that great guy that was there, he is going to take responsibility for that actions. And I think he sees his combat with Equus as his way for salvation. He's got to keep this monster at bay, and he will fight for all of eternity to keep this monster at bay so that this monster will never be unleashed on people again. And that's how I'd like to see that's how he's going and how he's got his salvation, how in the end, the soul that is Father Leone will eventually die one day. And that soul will move on because of, you know, what the price he paid.
Hopefully get some forgiveness for that. I don't know.
And maybe forgive himself eventually.
Yeah, which I don't know. It's a tragic story, a very tragic story with him, because I don't know. And it's funny, I was questioning whether or not he was the Mark IV, and the big, you know, Roman numeral 4 on his chest should have been a dead giveaway. But as I'm looking at Superman right here, it is one of the things, talking about another tragic character. I love Superman, but one of the hard parts about being Superman is the loneliness of being Superman, knowing he's going to live beyond his wife, knowing that he's going to constantly keep trying to save the world and keep doing his part and being there for people whenever possible, but then ultimately realizing who is going to save him when the time comes. He had to face that in this story, you know, where he had a crisis of faith and needed someone to save him. And, you know, who will ultimately be there for him? I don't know. And that's got to be a lonely feeling to know that's what you're doomed to at the end. And will he become more and more alien again? I think it's interesting. Like, that was one of the things that Kingdom Come explored, and it was interesting to see, you know, that, you know, in the future, what will Superman be like because of loneliness and living forever? Living forever is not all it's cracked up to be.
No.
Yeah, just ask Connor McLeod. Yeah, it's a little tough. Yeah,
So.
But though, in seriousness, I do like the fact that the reasoning behind him going to the rainforest and getting away from the desolate Arctic, and actually he wants to be surrounded by life. And that, you know, is a good thing, even though he's still just as isolated where he is in the Amazon, but it's, you know, he's surrounded by life. He's, you know, it's kind of a resurgence of life and humanity in him coming back from that. So
yeah. It's a great story. I'm glad that you picked it. It was such a roller coaster ride for myself to kind of see where this story has gone. But I didn't expect anywhere near this kind of level of. I think we all had personal levels where this story reached us in ways that I think was interesting to see the variations on what we all got out of this. It was a good choice, Mandy. Life in the Gutter.
Yes.
What led you to decide that you wanted to do a column? Because it's one of the great things I like about Life in the Gutter. It's really, you put a lot of your personality into it, a lot of your heart into it, a lot of your own personal approach to fandom. So where did this come from? What made you decide? Because I was excited when I got your original email, and I do look forward to every column because it's fresh and interesting to me, because you definitely, your exposure to comics are very different than mine. So what led to your creation of Life in the Gutter?
Well, I have always been a writer. So, you know, I wrote for newspaper in college, and, you know, do some creative writing and everything. So, when I was listening to the show and you guys were talking about how you wanted more, you know, listener content for the website and everything, and I just, you know, I'm only a few years into reading comics, and you know, when something especially is new to you and exciting to you, you're looking for some kind of outlet for it. And, you know, to find other people, because let me tell you, trying to talk comics with my parents or some of my other friends and family, not happening. So to have some kind of outlet for that, it was natural for me, because I have, writing is such a natural way for me to express what I'm thinking. So just putting all those different aspects together was really how it came about, and here we are.
Yeah, and one of the things, your most recent article, you did something on Origin and Omens.
Yes.
And you've been asking for some help on the Origins and Omens for the past couple weeks. Do you remember which Origins and Omens are the ones that you're still looking for help with?
Yes. I've got the list here. Booster Gold, JSA, Green Lantern Corps, The Outsiders, and Vigilante.
And what are you looking for people to do?
Okay. Well, even since I started doing these, it's kind of evolved from, the way that I look at it. It's been, when I first started doing it, it had been 6 months since those stories appeared in the books. So I thought, hey, it'd be really cool to look back, because I know, at least for me, when I was reading those, some of the images that they had were really like, okay, what is that all about? Where are they, how are we going to get from, where we are with these characters right now to the point that they're alluding to, what's going to happen in the future. And now here we are 6 months later, and you're starting to really see some of those story points and some of the places that they were really alluding to them going with the characters. You're really getting to see some of that now. So, at first it was a lot more detailed, but, like this last one that I did with Justice League, we had a change in the creative team. Dwayne McDuffie isn't on the book anymore. I think one of the things that really got me was that there was an image of Icon in with that, and now where's Icon? Nowhere to be found. So, and they've, Dan DiDio has even come out and said no plans for him right now. The Milestone characters, except for Static, really.
There's a Milestone Forever miniseries that's coming out, which is going to be by McDuffie and some of the artists that work.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
But then Static is going to be, it looks like, involved with Teen Titans, but other than that, we're not going to be seeing those characters.
But as far as the way that they were, they were kind of suggesting that Icon was going to be involved in the Justice League. Well, now with James Robinson taking over, and we know, the lineup that we're going to have for his Justice League, some of the things that were in that Origins and Omens story kind of, been put on the back burner or just forgotten about altogether. So I'm just kind of looking at, the things that they had already planned out 6 months ago and how they're playing out in the books right now, and if there's anything that hasn't played out yet. And,
So you're looking for each of those books for somebody who's not only read the Origins and Omens, but currently reads the series, where they can tell you, like, hey, here's what's come of it, and maybe some of their own commentary on it?
Yeah, exactly. Those 6 that I listed, I started reading Booster Gold, but when that actually came out, I wasn't reading it. So I really don't have enough background on it to really do that justice. So I'm looking for somebody that just has a little more experience with it.
So here's what we're looking for. We're actually going to turn this into a mini contest. And what I'd like is any listeners, it can be one listener helping with it's 6 of them, right? I think that you listed off?
Yeah.
One listener who can help with all 6. And actually, if you look in the current Life in the Gutter column, you actually ask for that help. Actually, the past couple you've been asking for that help on those particular Origins and Moments. But the most current one has the current update as far as where you're at on that particular storyline. Anybody who helps out with that will be entered into a contest. What I've done is, as I've gotten replaced with trades or hardcovers certain books that I have, instead of reselling all of them, I've kept some of them aside to use for contests for the show. We've also had things donated by listeners, and I do appreciate listeners that have taken old comics and said, hey, I'm going to send to the Raging Bullets guys, and they can use it for contest entries. Unknown Fat Boy Chad Burdett is one of the most recent ones to do that. But I've added a number of things to sweeten up the pot. And what I'd like to do is there's 6 different things, so it can be 6 different people. It can be a few different people. Anybody who participates will automatically enter you into this contest. And when all 6 of them are done, we will pick one person to be a winner, and we'll let you pick from our comic grab bag. So you get free comics. You get a shot at free comics for helping out Mandy. So I'd really like to encourage people to consider helping her out. If one person does all 6, you may automatic winner. There you go, done. So, I mean, easy way to free comics for helping her out, and I know you'll give them full credit in your column for helping out.
Oh yeah,
but
definitely.
I know you want to finish and wrap up and do a complete series on that Origins and Omens. So anybody who's reading those books right now that would like to give commentary, and Justice League would be an interesting one too for somebody who's been a current Justice League reader. Are you happy with the changes? Because obviously, I think one of the reasons why the change with Icon is now Mon-El is taking that kind of Superman role in the Justice League. So I'm assuming that whole lineup has changed based on the fact that we're now using the current Batman. Icon has now been replaced by Mon-El. Not necessarily replaced by Mon-El, but I mean, there's those characters that are already in that role. We've gone to more of the traditional DC Universe style characters in there, with the exception of Congo.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's the reason for the change in that. So I encourage any listeners to help out with that contest, and Mandy, keep us posted if anybody's helping out. Well, I like prizes. Give prizes.
Yeah,
Always a good thing. Mandy, I want to thank you for this. This was one it was very fun to chat and record and talk about this book. It was awesome. I was really not expecting this discussion to be as big and epic as it was.
Holy caffeine!
Our sponsors for this episode were once again DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, you can pick up the Superman Mon-El hardcover, Volume 1, at a special discount of 50% off, $24.99 regularly, $12.49 with that discount. It's a great chance to pick up this series if you haven't been, or if you're a fan that's really enjoying it, it's a great chance to pick up that hardcover collection at a great discount. Coming up on 183 is going to be Preacher Book 1 hardcover. This is going to be issues 1 through 12. We're going to be doing next week an episode devoted to all new content, all new material that's currently out on the market, and then listener voicemails and emails. Then we're diving into another dissection with Preacher. Preacher Volume 1 hardcover. It's $39.99 regularly, 47% off, only $21.19. Volume 1 and Volume 2 in trade, $14.99 regularly, 47% off, only $7.94 each. I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support us with these wonderful Rage of the Month deals so you guys can all be a part of our show. Don't forget the voicemail line, 1-440-388-4434, or Dr. Norge on Skype, or ragingbullets@gmail.com. Don't forget our Ragdoll of the Whatnot contest. What have you seen Jim dressing up in? Whether we actually got a song parody that we're going to be hearing on our next episode that is absolutely hysterical. We have some drawings. We have images that are up on the website. It's really been great to see what people are coming up with. Feel free to be clever with this one. You know, write stories, do sketches, do comic strips, do photoshops. Song parodies are welcome because we got one that's really funny coming up for you next week. We are welcoming all submissions and entries. The grand prize is going to be a trade by me that I'm going to be giving to somebody their trade of their choice. And then we're going to be having multiple prizes afterwards. We're going to be doing at least 4 other runner-up prizes that we're going to be, Jim and I are each going to pick 2, I think, that we're really enjoying. And then the one grand prize one will be the one that we both agree on as the most stellar one. But we're looking for creativity. We're looking for, so feel free to have fun with this one. And we're really looking to have a good time. We've had an amazing amount of entries so far, and they keep coming in, so I'm going to keep putting them up on the website as I do the updates, and you guys can kind of join in and see some of the fun that we're having with this particular contest. But that's Ragdoll of the Whatnot. What have you seen Jim dressed up in? And please send those to ragingbullets@gmail.com. And those entries will also not only be for that contest and for those prizes, but anything that you do for the website does go into our ongoing contest, which, like I said, on episode 183, we are going to be picking another winner who's going to be joining us on the show. just like Mandy did. And I really enjoy that when we have the opportunity to have someone else on and for you to pick a book that you're really enjoying that you really would like to talk about or something from your past. So definitely look forward to announcing that on episode 183. Jim and I were originally going to do next week Preacher. Jim, if it's okay with you, I'd like to wait 1 week and talk some current books and do listener emails and voicemails and then do Preacher. Because the way I'd like to structure Preacher would be I'd like to do 182 current books, listener emails and voicemails, do Preacher 1 through 4, skip a week, do current books, listener emails and voicemails, do the next 4 issues of Preacher, same thing, and then come back and do the last 4 issues of Preacher and wrap it up. Does that make sense to you?
That kind of makes sense to me.
Okay. Because I like to just keep some current books. Seeing as we're doing older material for this episode, I'd like to do current and then just kind of rotate it that way until we complete Preacher. And what we can do is in our first Preacher episode on 183, we will pick who our listener winner is going to be to pick the next book. Because we'll have a listener one join us after we're done with Preacher.
Cool.
So then we can start letting people know what book they have to get next to join us for that. This was fun, though. And thank you again, Mandy, for joining us on that. Be sure to be reading Life in the Gutter if you haven't been. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We're waiting for you. Go ahead, anytime now.
Okay. I got caught up in a...
Yeah, you're running the show, remember? Anytime now, Jim.
I'm trying to talk.
Okay, you're the lead, remember?
I know. Oh, God, we're in trouble.
We're letting you lead.
I know,
You're being a reluctant leader.
Oh,
Military or otherwise. But Jim, I'll say this, you're still an inspirational leader.
Okay. Right now.
To who?
You don't know where you are in your notes.
I am so flustered right now. That is unbelievable.
This is great. Insert car crash sound.
It's like a train wreck.
Yeah.
Now,
You want me to read the book to you?
Yeah. Well, actually, no, hold on. No, I got it.